Hey, what's going on, everybody? And thanks for joining us again. We're live, and we are excited for today's episode. Today, we've got a lot packed as we siphon through the wreckage of a lot of deep scenarios, starting off with CNN reports. Analysis samples are indicating early spread of COVID originating in the Wuhan animal market. Oh, so convenient with that timing. Followed up, we're squeezing in a fourth one. So we're going to keep the Wuhan topic brief because the bigger topic today is the upcoming strike going on by the dock workers and potentially some of the truckers as well, and the major impact that that's going to have. And then we're going to be moving on to, I think, the biggest story of the day, which is how Hurricane Helene raises questions about the government's response efforts. And then finally, we're going to be wrapping the episode up with Julian Assange speaking out. Journalism is not a crime. Now, with all that being said, I want to bring in the Pickle Gallery joining us for today. We've got Ricky and Silent Destroyer. How you guys doing today?
Blessed, black, and highly favored, man. We outside.
Doing great. How's everybody doing?
All right. So with all that being said, let me bring it in to our co-host, my good friend, David Cunningham. How you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm not quite as blessed as Ricky, I'd say. I'm probably a little brighter than that today. But, we do have, a real current event lineup of topics here tonight. I'm really looking forward to kind of getting the weeds on this one. But, we do have someone here within our ranks that is going to strike if they don't get a 70% pay raise in the by the end of the episode. Doug, you have anything to say for yourself?
I would like to start getting paid.
You better be deserving, Dougie.
I would like to get paid.
All right, well, let's bring in the episode. So like I said, starting off today's episode, we've got the CNN reports, and I just want to take a trip down memory lane, right? Because the truth is, what does the truth mean or matter without context and time, right? So if you can silence people, I mean, I want to avoid triggering algorithms with our show, but if you go on Twitter, there's been a few episodes I've seen like this week alone of like, do not forget. And it's like people, it looks like kidnapping videos of nurses grabbing people and strapping them down, giving them vaccines, like the whole thing. We are so, that was such an alternate universe. And we were in it for just like a brief moment, right? Like the adults around us, the boomers, even the granddaddies of them all. This was like something no one's ever experienced before. And the world stopped. They tested it to see if they could get compliance and how much control and manipulation they could pull off. Got all the information they needed and let everybody go before it brought about too much strain to where they couldn't apply it again. And it's amazing to me how much people have moved on and forgotten such an insane time. So first, let's kick off this conversation. CNN reporting the truth. Let's walk down Rand Paul grilling Fauci in 2021.
Dr. Fauci, do you still support funding of the NIH funding of the lab in Wuhan?
Senator Paul, with all due respect, you are entirely and completely incorrect.
Wow.
That the NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain of function research in the Wuhan Institute.
Do they fund
of
Dr.
Virology.
Barrick?
We do not fund.
Do you fund Dr. Barrick's gain of function research?
Dr. Barrett does not doing gain of function research, and if it is, it's according to the guidelines, and it is being conducted in North Carolina.
You don't think inserting
China.
a bat virus spike protein that he got from the Wuhan Institute into the SARS virus is gain of function?
That is
you would
not
be in the minority because at least 200 scientists have signed a statement from the Cambridge Working Group saying that it is gain of function.
So, okay, here's the back and forth. Is there gain of function? Is there not gain of function? And did it take place in Wuhan? And then we just fast forward 3 years later, no government intervention, right? There's all the businesses are back to normal. Fauci has admitted out in public that the 6-foot thing was just something we made up just because we had to keep the charade alive. The masks, we've seen them concede, didn't do anything. First, you don't need the masks because the masks don't work. Then it was, well, I only told you the masks don't work because I didn't think we would have enough. Now that we have enough, you all need the, you know what? Take that back, double mask. You got 2 double masks. And then it just came to, yeah, again, it was just all fake. So I just want to remind us, here's the article that we're kind of, come on, Doug, do it quicker.
Hey, don't blame me. This is your fault. It's called user error.
Here's the article. So now CNN, you're telling me, can just admit that the new studies suggest that it came from the Wuhan wet market, but you would cancel any scientist, any doctor, any expert, or any just layman that wants to have a dialogue and a commentary about, I don't know, the most extreme thing happening in the world, and we make it a crime. And that'll probably be a theme that we see sown throughout today's episode, bringing us to today's conclusion when we get to Assange, because the truth is, there's an attack on... You're either going after a guy for reporting it, or you are admitting you have to report the truth. And before, you were, what? Accidentally reporting a lie?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how you accidentally do that. So before we proceed down the line any further, do you guys have any thoughts?
Well, I to your initial point, like it's one of those, like 2020 was so, it seemed like yesterday, and at the same time seemed like 5 years ago, just because of how just everything was moving so fast and moving not at all. The world stopped. There's too much news coming at me. There's too many breaking scenarios, and at the same time, I can't do anything. Right. I can't leave, or I can't go anywhere, or I can't arrive somewhere. And we just kind of collectively thought, well, we're ready for this to be over, so we're just going to not necessarily forget about it, but we're not going to remember some of the very specific details.
Yeah, and not much reflection.
And no, not really, very little reflection. We're not seeing the kind of think pieces and articles that come out and say, hey, in retrospect, you know, we're not seeing some of those. It just seems in general, we're ready. We just all we're ready to move on. And with that, I think we forget some of the silliness, that I'll call it, of the policies and just the general change in malaise of how policy was approached, in positive and I think negative ways. And it's funny when we're starting to see some of these articles come out and do a bigger deep dive. You just kind of like, it wasn't until you mentioned it, it's like, yeah, there's kind of some things, silly things that even in our local communities was just weird, like the mask thing and some of that stuff with Fauci. Yeah. But you just kind of forget about it. Remember, he had a whole documentary that came out about him that was glowing. It's the reason why they got rid of the YouTube dislike button.
Dude, he was the highest paid government official for like 5 years. Yeah. That's wild. 4 years.
Yeah,
3 years.
Yeah,
I got to be accurate.
Well, I'm pretty sure
we don't want misinformation out there.
Exactly.
We pride ourselves.
I apologize
on being 100% accurate in the show, regardless of the situation.
What do you got for us, Doug?
No, I was just gonna say, if you remember in Ohio, our Fauci was Amy Acton, and I'm pretty sure she's like one of the highest paid people in the Ohio state government. Like, still, like DeWine.
Not an athletic person in the Ohio state
here's
government.
A convenient thing. I'm gonna draw upon something totally different because it has nothing to do with this, silly gooses. But if I were to draw upon something, maybe like the housing crisis, right? Oh, yeah. The unhomed, because it'd be totally cruel of you to call them homeless. The unhoused, put your pinky up when you say it. It changes their circumstance. But the unhoused, we've put millions and millions of dollars into a California program to help the unhoused. What's convenient is when the workers take 6-figure salaries to help solve people who don't have a roof. And it's like, So wait, what are people donating to? Your salary or like and then the real question is, do you have a motive to rid the streets of the unhoused? Because if that problem goes away, there's no need for your income. So it's kind of like if everybody isn't sick and afraid of their neighbor, I'm not the highest paid American anymore. I don't know, just convenient math.
Or it's just like a power thing too. What I think some of these individuals, it's not necessarily like the money. The money's nice. I mean, don't get me wrong. Almost a $500,000 salary would be pretty cool right about now. But it's that power, it's that influence. You're getting documentaries made of you. You're getting all these articles. It's he was, to a certain subsect of people, he was a superhero. And he could do no wrong. Kids say no wrong. It's
they
all
had
the
religious
crazies that
candles.
are incorrect.
There was like St. Fauci candles and like it was a wild time. But okay, keeping us grounded to the topic at hand, because Fauci is his own topic in and of himself. Reminding us of like CNN, right? So they have Dr. Sanjay Gupta come on the Joe Rogan Experience to try to, defend the narrative and fight the man who's popping horse dewormer. And so Dr. Sanjay Gupta comes on and has to have this scientific confrontation on whether or not we should have herd immunity versus vaccines and everything else. Yeah. And while, we're not going to walk down that memory lane, you can watch an episode of a layman comedian just school an expert in his craft. But let's also remind you something CNN followed up with. When Joe Rogan caught COVID and got rid of it in a day by being super healthy, taking the medicine he indicated worked for him, given to him by his experts, that didn't come from a veterinarian, as suggested by the news. Let's recall this moment, right?
It turns out I got COVID. So we immediately threw the kitchen sink at it. All kinds of meds, monoclonal antibodies, ivermectin, Z-Pack.
So we don't need to go through his whole medical chart here. What did they do? CNN, and Joe Rogan talks about it all the time. You can find clips and everything else where they put a filter over him to make him look gray and sick. And it's like they didn't want him looking like the beacon of health as he's a day after COVID running through the park trail looking like Hercules. So what was something incredibly deceptive they did? They overlaid a filter over on top of him. Now, I also want everyone here to recall just a couple episodes ago, we did a segment on how Joe Rogan was suing MSNBC and CNN for cutting up his podcast talking about Tulsi Gabbard and manipulating it like he was talking about Kamala Harris and that he was supporting her. And so with all that being said, this is the deceptive track they have. And this was just a moment from the Colbert Report just this past week.
Tweeted, I was like, this is crazy. I just want you to see it before I describe it. But it's the audience laughing at CNN being honest. Watch this. This is crazy. What's that, bro?
I'm trying to get to Twitter to stop loading.
Oh, this is the government. They're attacking Twitter because of the Elon Musk thing. Guaranteed. Let's just call it that. Start from the beginning and go big screen because this is so preposterous.
Trump's kind of been thrown on his heels by this, and he's not really sure how to go after Vice President Harris. He knew his attack lines on President Biden. He really has struggled with how to go after someone who's 20 years younger than him, who is a different gender, a different race. It's kind of been this moment where he has not been able to coalesce around a single attack line.
I know you guys are objective over there, that you just report the news as it is. Oh, I know. CNN makes a... I know
that's supposed to be a laugh line?
I wasn't supposed to be, but...
Trump has kind of been
Bro.
Wow.
Bro. How crazy is that? The audience is like, shut the fuck up. That is hilarious. They thought he was being a joker. They thought that was a joke.
Yeah.
That's how crazy this world has gotten. We're fucking CNN being unbiased is a joke to people in the audience. That's so crazy.
Yeah.
So what's amazing about that clip is Stephen Colbert is being genuine and honest because you guys are just so honest there at CNN, and the whole crowd laughs. And they're like, she's like, was that supposed to be a laugh track? Did you like hit the sign for them to laugh? No, the instincts kicked in.
Yeah.
Oh darn, did we make natural laughter for once? Shit, that was not intentional. We don't know how to do that. Do you guys have any wrapping thoughts on this thing? Because we got to get into the real topics for the day.
Nah, it's just you keep doing the same thing over and over. People gonna start taking the veil from over their eyes, I guess. Like
you hope, but I don't think so, dude. I don't think the veil's being picked up. Like I was listening to Andrew Tate talk to Candace Owens about 2-3 weeks ago, and he looks at her and he goes, Candace, I genuinely believe, like, he's like, I thought COVID was waking people up. Like, I thought it was a terrible situation, but it was actually waking people up. He's like, Candace, the problem is if they wanted to do it again tomorrow, they could. And I'm sorry, guys, they could. If they wanted to do it again tomorrow, they could. And there would be people, you know what? So Saturday, I went to the 21 Pilots concert by the third psycho liberal. Because listen, I don't know how I'm on the same wavelength as this crowd of people. It's all like the gothic forgotten children and me and Kemp. Like, that's just the crowd at a 21 Pilots concert. And they're all ultra liberal. That's been the theme for the last 15 years of going to these concerts. Ultra liberal, and then me and Kemp. And Kemp looks at me by like 20 minutes into it. He goes, oh, I've been seeing a lot of masks. I said, I did too. He goes, see, we should have done an over and under how many masks we see today. I go, dude, it's not too late. I go, I've seen 3. He goes, I saw 3 too. I go, all right, so we've seen probably the same 3. Let's do over and under 7. Dude, when I tell you that was a laughing joke, and it's like, where are you people at? Where are you people at? And here's the truth. They've mentally infected people, right? We've got that figured out. But for the people with the mental infection, they look at you and they go, I have an autoimmune disorder. Like, treat me special. My girlfriend through COVID had an autoimmune disorder. Didn't affect her in this way, like they make it out to be. And truthfully, if you need a mask to live in regular world because of your autoimmune disorder, why? Autoimmune disorder did not exist beginning 2020. That was a disorder that probably existed for 50 to 100. There's at least multiple lineages with autoimmune disorder. I would agree. So if autoimmune disorder person needs a mask to exist because they have it, respect me, I'm special, I'm a victim.
They need to be the boy in the
Then
bubble.
why did we not have bodies dropping like flies for 200, 300, 400? Dude, there were a century of time we were throwing poop out the window.
Well, I don't see as much people in mass during COVID. It's like it's way less. You see the 1 out of 10, but it's 1 out of 10. That's them people. You know, I mean, it's 1 out of 10. I appreciate seeing them. I said this before. I appreciate seeing them. So I know, like, I don't want to talk to you. You whatever you believe in or whatever you got going on over there. Thank you. That's like a great sign for me to stay away from you. Honestly,
I still mostly see him driving.
Wait,
I don't.
Yeah,
I don't really see him too much in public. Like just like out and about in like public spaces, they're still driving. Look over,
and that's the few.
You're wearing a mask.
Wait.
Interesting.
But I like Ricky's point. He goes, I take it as a sign. I know the type of person I'm dealing with. Let's agree that's why they're doing it. They know, we know, they know that this isn't helping them. They're only doing it to signal, I'm one of the good ones. Like, nano, I'm one of them. I'm one of that. So you're good for picking up that signal because that's quite literally the exact signal I think they're trying to send out.
And I think, well, so I'm gonna take this in a bit of a different direction.
Oh.
I think one of the the absolutes that's going to come out of this whole thing since 2020
Absolutely.
is no one's really going to believe anything. So let's say this CNN article is just actually true. Every fact that you would determine as, well, if I see these facts in front of me, I will, I see all the evidence in front of me, it's true. You're not going to believe it anymore. And it goes for every single side, or like every single person. We see a mass person, instead of assuming, well, maybe they have something wrong and they're just kind of being mindful of the whole situation. Nope, they are a virus absolutist, or a virus praiser, essentially, not a denier, but they praise the whole thing. And it's just, we're just not believing anything anymore. So everyone's skeptical of all things all the time now. And that one might be the worst part of this.
Hold up, though. My question for you, though, David, is, are you telling me there isn't an excuse to be skeptical?
Well, I think there is. There absolutely. It showed there is a certain point, and within all the messaging, that actually that kind of contradicts itself a little bit. Like you said, like the Fauci comes out, well, 6 feet thing, kind of, the mask thing, and you start seeing on the other side of things too. So when we do the vaccine, and there is some sort of data to kind of go, all right, yeah, how many millions of people got this, and how many issues are there? Fairly minimal. And with any new drug, you're going to have some sort of reactions to it. Well, this is probably the most highly distributed vaccine in the world, or at least maybe the flu vaccine might be more, but it's up there. And people aren't dropping like flies, or they're not growing tails, or all sorts of whatever is going. They're not catching the 5G. So
wait, but we got myocarditis that we're trying to pretend we don't see.
Well, there's some of that. I'm not saying there isn't any of that, but I think a lot of it's overblown on both sides of the spectrum. So let's just use the ivermectin example. So if the government pushed ivermectin, you think the typical Joe Rogan listener would be more or less or skeptical of ivermectin versus whatever else is out there. I think part of the reason...
I want to applaud you in finding a fun and very real inquiry. I like your point.
All right.
But I want... Okay. Let's distill your question. Okay. Your question, being a good one, would the average Joe Rogan listener choose to take ivermectin if it was the state that was suggesting it and not Joe Rogan? Are you saying and not Joe Rogan, or with Joe Rogan? Because that changes things too.
I think we're just going to distill even further, just the state.
Right.
We're just going to go the state.
Yeah. But Joe Rogan's a player in this because they're his audience. So they're still going to look to him. So I'll say if he says it and the government says it, they'll do it, obviously. If the government says to take it and he doesn't, there's a strong chance a large number of them wouldn't. Now, why do I find this to be such a fun inquiry, and why did I want to really distill it like that? Because I have listened to this guy for almost a decade, and I'm a huge fan.
Yep.
I think he's strayed away from what he used to be and what drew me into him, but I still listen to him a lot. So I would put myself in that category.
Okay.
When I reflect, I need to emphasize, for the strong thinking listener, which you will be reluctant to admit is more of them than you're willing to give me.
Okay.
But I will admit the masses is the asses. And so the truth is, still the majority of them are going to be retarded. So I cannot deny the first piece that I gave you. If he said to do it and the government said to do it, they'd do it. If he said not to and the government said to, they wouldn't. That's the masses. They're dumb. But for the people that are thinking, and I think a lot of people that listen to him are, or a lot of the people that are thinking do also listen to him. They may not agree with him. Like, I don't agree with a lot of things he says now, but I still listen to him because I like the way some of the people he talks to and the platform he creates, and being able to disagree with him, the mental exercise. So that all being said, for the thinkers, this isn't a vaccine. We got cheated. We got shorted. This was a lie. This is an mRNA gene treatment.
Yep.
This is not a vaccine. And there were some microbiologists that were on the Joe Rogan Experience, and he said they were talking about how the bigger crime or thing they were able to get away with when it came to the COVID-19 scheme, more than the sale of the vaccine and everything else, most importantly, they were able to get the masses to socialize an mRNA gene treatment like a vaccine, as if it was a vaccine, and people will now take it. If they didn't if they weren't compelled to, under the guise of a vaccine in an emergency situation, and we really had the full scope of knowledge, people would have been significantly more reluctant for a gene therapy versus an actual vaccine as they sold it. So here's where I kind of disagree with your point, and this is where I think the thinker does their pushback. I think regardless of all of that, I think all roads still lead to ivermectin, because why is that even the center of the conversation? Because this was the most mass-produced drug. It could be made practically frickin' free. It was used worldwide and had it alleviated multiple ailments. And the vaccine itself wouldn't have been able to get emergency status protection if something like ivermectin was a viable option. So now there's an incentive to damn and demonize this opportunity, because if it is an actual opportunity, you can't manipulate people's genes and afflict your, remove yourself from any of the symptoms or issues that may arise from it. Now they have total immunity, and it's because it was through emergency. So I disagree with your point, because I think all of the people that logically, not by blind guidance, the scientists that were silenced on Twitter for telling the truth and standing up for drugs like this, or even just the science and consideration of avenues of medicine like this, for them to take these leaps, and for the folks and thinkers that leaned on those experts that did the reading of maybe the forbidden sciences and forbidden publications, they're also going to end up at ivermectin. So were there people giving support to the veterinary medicine because they just love, I got a Joe Rogan logo tattoo on the back of my calf? Yeah, that guy exists. But also, I think the real thinkers, they are, among many other podcasts, going to have Joe Rogan in their shuffle. And I also think they would have ended up, with or without his influence, at the consideration of ivermectin, because that's where all the science, and not mainstream, but free-thinking science, led us to.
I think a lot of that is just framing. So it's,
and that's how I framed it.
Well,
David.
well, I think it's the way the government framed it, the way Joe Rogan frames it, the way the news media
That's how
frames
the think tank frames it.
It's how we reframe it. So there is. I think the broader point is the necessarily, like, all things being equal, all things being the same, depending on how which news source you trust the most, or which voice you trust the most, you put less skepticism on it. And now we're taking it, unless it's like my preferred choice of information, whether that be news or person, I'm now more skeptical of everything else, regardless of we're we're just naturally skeptical versus, well, I'm skeptical because of X, Y, and Z. Like, well, it's not a first person source. It's, it came in kind of a, this could be AI, we could think of all sorts of different excuses as to why someone would say, I don't trust this. I don't trust this piece of information. And what we saw with 2020 is just now everything is just we varnished it with a thick layer of skepticism, no matter who says it and where it comes from, unless it's my singular choice of information.
Dude, how crazy is it that Matt Lauer had a button that would just close his office door and lock?
Really? I didn't
That's
know that.
why he got released from today's show.
Yep. No way, really?
Yeah.
That's insane to me. Doug, wrapping thoughts.
I do think it'd be pretty cool to have a button that closes your door for you.
I mean, that's not a bad thing.
Yes, it is a bad thing.
No, just
he was using it for
inappropriate
bad
purposes.
reasons. He was using it for bad reasons. Doesn't mean it's not a cool thing to have, though.
If I can just shut my
Don't
house down
ever
with a
go
button, great.
into spaces that have ways out with Doug.
Silence. Crickets.
All right, let's get into our
Let's
second
go to the
topic
next
here.
topic here.
All right, looking at, we had to sneak this one in because it's going to be a big one.
Yeah.
And the dock workers across the East Coast are preparing to strike, and it's going to spread worldwide. And I think the best way to kick off today's topic is let's listen here from the union boss that had a lot to say on the topic.
These people today don't know what a strike is. When my men hit the streets, from Maine to Texas, every single port will lock down. You know what's going to happen? I'll tell you. First week, be all over the news every night, boom, boom. Second week, guys who sell cars can't sell cars because the cars ain't coming in off the ships. They get laid off. Third week, malls start closing down.
What an asshole this guy
They can't
is.
get the goods from China. They can't sell clothes. They can't do this. Everything in the United States comes on a ship. They go out of business. Construction workers get laid off because the materials aren't coming in. The steel's not coming in. The lumber's not coming in. They lose their job. Everybody's hating the longshoremen now because now they realize how important our jobs are. Now I have the president screaming at me, I'm putting a Taft-Hartley on you. Go ahead. Taft-Hartley means I have to go back to work for 90 days. That's a cooling off period. Do you think when I go back for 90 days, those men are going to go to work on that pier? It's going to cost the company's money to pay their salaries. Well, they went from 30 moves an hour maybe to 8. They're going to be like this. Who's going to win here in the long run? You're better off sitting down and let's get a contract and let's move on with this world. And in today's world, I'll cripple you. I will cripple you, and you have no idea what that means. Nobody does.
So here's what's interesting. All right, first, Doug, you had an interesting knee-jerk reaction. What were you
Alex,
saying?
your mic.
No, I said he's such an asshole. He's like taking pride in saying, oh, these people are going to lose their jobs and these people are going to not be able to buy what they need because we're going on strike. It's like, you shouldn't be happy you're about to ruin a lot of people's lives. You're a piece of shit.
Well, I don't know if he was happy about it or being stern.
He didn't exactly seem sad, though.
Alex, your mic's off.
Alex, Mike. David, Alex, what's your mic? Your mic.
Your mic's unmuted.
Oh no! Was the mic down?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
mic
but
was
now
down.
we're
Okay,
back,
all right.
we're
So
back.
I can reverse my point. So I don't think he's being an ass about it. I think he's framing
I
it
don't know.
as how important how everything comes through the ports and how we understand with 2020 we understand supply chains and have a better understanding of where all the stuff comes from, and it can only come in the country in so many different spots. There's not, you can't just beach
and Doug, I'm with David. Acknowledge what is he even talking about? He goes, you want automated ports? This isn't about the raise. You want to automate your ports? We're going to just stop working. We want not only a contract that pays us more, which is just what everybody's going to want.
Yeah.
But we also want in writing, you're not going to replace us. So it's really just the job security more than anything.
Yeah,
That's
but
what
he was taking pride in listing all the people that will lose their jobs.
No, I didn't take that at all. I took that as look at how much influence we have. This isn't Doug. He didn't even say
But
these are all
that's
the
very
people losing their
mob-like.
job.
It's like, by the way, guys, I'm going to exert my pressure on you.
No, it's not
like
taking
the
pride.
mob.
It's letting you know the reality of the situation. Like,
there is
no one look at us. No one ever talk about the port worker. No one cares about the port worker. No one cares about the truck drivers. No one cares about these people. And they're finally putting their foot down because I feel like every time there's something to say from people that do the unspeaking jobs, no one really, as he said, we're going to figure out about it next week. And it's just going to strangle it. So let's actually sit down. He's not trying to be a bully or anything.
I agree.
No,
kind
but
of forcing
I
the
think
issue.
to Doug's
Let's
point
do
too,
this.
it's well, the mob really do like to use the leverage button quite a bit, letting you know kind of the state of things, and and you know there's some. I mean, there's some history of the mob within unions. This isn't news to anybody.
Sure, and definitely the docs. I agree, but
it has undertones of don't fuck with us. Don't just let us do our thing here. And
see, I don't think that's it. I'm with Ricky. I don't think it's don't
The
mess
man
with
is
us.
protecting the future.
I think
The way-
I want you to know how valuable we are, and if you
Yeah.
don't appreciate it, we'll show you how valuable we are.
Exactly.
Before you have the chance to replace us. Because I don't know why we're glossing over a major piece of his statement is I want contractual knowledge that you're not going to replace me. But before I flip it to Silent and Ricky, does this at all evolve your position? It's showing that they already got a 55% raise and they're looking for they want to get it to a 70% raise and also add the piece where they can't go automated. Well, how much do you think they're getting paid? It's being reported that they're getting $150,000 and want more. So here's the deal.
I think that's more than enough for a dock worker.
Boom. Now here comes Doug. So all I'm saying is I got to agree that they're not being underpaid, but also like the truckers of America, that's kind of what they're getting paid. Some get 200, but it's a 6-figure gig. And again, it probably should be because you're the lifeblood of what's moving here. And for what the profit overhead is, we should, okay. It used to be all we want is food on the table. One, why have we gotten so gruesome that it's too much to ask to have like at least a little bit of balance to where like I could live a little bit just like you. Like you've got 3 houses. I would like just one in a vacation.
Yeah.
Like that would make me comfortably your slave. And why is that too much to ask for? But then at the same time, it isn't like they're getting paid pennies. This is a solid gig, and it is because I think where we're at socially, it's underappreciated. But does that at all evolve your perspective? And I don't know, what are your thoughts? Silent, Ricky?
So they're getting paid well, but I feel like every occupation should try to fight against automating their job. Like it's what everybody is fighting against because unfortunately, technology does erase jobs and you have to go find it somewhere else. But shit is moving too fast, and I can understand where he's coming from. Maybe he knows more than we do and sees something on the horizon that we don't know. And he's like, yo, we need another 30 years or 20 years before you start implementing these things and cutting a lot of departments.
Yeah, and I think one thing that gets lost with the salary or like with the money talks is how, with especially these union gigs, how many overtime hours are they working? Is this the median? Is this the average? Is this based on 40 hours? Typically, when I've seen these figures around, a lot of them are like the police figures come out too. It's overtime. They're working some pretty decent overtime because the ports, they don't stop. They got to keep coming. Things come in. People are paying good
Facts.
money to get these imports in, and you are sometimes the biggest bottleneck within a particular supply chain. So you got to keep going, got to keep moving. And sometimes when you don't have the manpower to replace like every shift, all right, Bob, you got to stay over next shift. We're going to need you for the weekend. Your daughter's baseball game or whatever's going on. Tough. And and sometimes with these union contracts too, like paternity and maternity leave is almost like 2 weeks. It's not even like some salary gigs or even, like regular, like salary gigs, like the government.
That's
it's usually
crazy.
about six weeks. And hey, if you're a union for this, and that's what they negotiate in these deals, or if you ever look at a union contract, there's a lot of provisions, all sorts of different things. Yeah, we want more money, but then the employers go, well, all right, we're going to take your paternity leave. So you get 2 weeks to have a child, 2 weeks. All right, we expect you back into on the shore or wherever they're going to be. So there's a lot of give and take. And this isn't a typical white collar job that's paying, $150,000 a year. This, they're working. They're putting long hours in. This isn't, I don't.
It takes a toll.
Yeah, it takes a toll. This isn't a simple like computer desk gig. It's a bit more involved than that. So I don't necessarily blame them because what's their marketable skills too outside of this. Let's say they're just replaced tomorrow. Yeah, you could probably do some, labor jobs other places, but it's not, you're going to be moving. It's kind of like what we saw with the auto manufacturing plants that left Flint. Once those left, you couldn't. I don't have marketing skills. I don't have, supply chain skills. I don't have this, that, or the other. So now I'm just kind of stuck.
Right.
What am I doing? Driving truck or doing something else that might not be quite as satisfying to me with my current skill set. That's what they're trying to protect.
Well, let's ask the bigger philosophical question then. Do you preserve jobs that are, I don't want to say becoming extinct, but that's pretty much what they are, right? Like at some point. So here's what's crazy. I think it was 2016. I can't recall anymore, but Andrew Yang, what year was it that he was running for president?
It was
2016.
It was 2016.
So in 2016, he was on Joe Rogan making the point that we need universal basic income, which if we need to walk down that road today, I will, but I'm against it and I will defend that point. But he was making the point of we need to have universal basic income because the trucking industry is like 60% of the country's employment. And like everybody makes that goes into that industry or something like 40%, something huge, like some huge major chunk. And all of those that take on the trade, most of them are like independent contractors. They get into like a position where they buy a truck, pay it off. Then they're like running their own semi. Then they can like buy more and lease them. And like these people really build huge lifestyles in this field.
Yep.
He goes, and that will be completely replaced when cars go automated and especially shipping. Like whether we go to drones or whatever the case may be, this is not a job that'll be around forever. So like the port worker, right? Like what are you fighting against? An automated port? Like what do we do when there is a society that no longer needs these jobs, however, is struggling to preserve them so people continue to have a role or a need in our society? Or how do you develop ways for them to have a different or new role in that society, right? Because it was totally offensive and cruel to make hashtag learn to code when these industries were replacing the trade workers. And you were literally talking about Flint. This was it. And they were like looking at those people going, fine, hashtag learn to code. And it's like, how are you going to look at a 45-year-old man that's been screwing widgets for 25 years and you're going to be like, learn to code? That's how we're going to find a new role for you. So this poses the question, do you preserve dying industries for the sake of preserving roles. But then if your only role or value to my society is in a dying or old or trade that holds us back, then why do I find you? This is the utilitarian perspective, but like, why are you necessary or worth preserving? Maybe you either need to get with it or fall by the wayside. That's for the betterment of the people. Or is it for the betterment of the people to carry the dead weight? I don't know.
Well, what makes this one particularly unique versus some of these other industries that are dying, like, well, let's use the coal industry for an example. That's one that's dying. For what I understand, the amount of subsidies the government gives for these ports isn't quite as vast or as large or as significant as, let's say like a coal mining operation or some green energy and some high cost of living areas. This one, they're making good money. These ports are making quite a bit of money bringing them in, because I think there's regulated. It's a bit of a cartel. Because there's only so many of them, and you're not really going to be building too many more. That's why that one in Miami is so important, because it's an existing port and they just expanded it. So all of a sudden they're able to kind of make more hay with what they already had infrastructure wise. You're not putting another port anywhere else. So kind of what's there is there. And there's maybe one or two more every decade. That's it.
Is he going to do it? He's going to do it. I can't resist. You know how like part of the major war going on in the Middle East and, that country we were going to try to avoid saying today.
Yep.
There's a port that like America is helping them because it'll the West Indies, it'll disrupt a lot of trade within that area. I could totally see them automating this and just being like, nope, this is fort. We're talking about the people that are talking about maximizing the dollar everywhere you can. Like they are for sure going to automate that port.
We'll see how important these ports really are in wartime. That's when you really know when efficiency is absolutely crucial.
And we're there.
And
grab your popcorn.
If that port becomes automated, and that's just the way of the future, and you're at a certain point stopping progress, you're always going to be on the losing side of it. Now, there's a different. Maybe this might just be a negotiation tactics. We've seen this a couple times. We asked for 70% more raise. Well, I'm actually really aiming for like 30% more, because if they remove it, everyone just feels better about it. So maybe they're saying we want zero automation.
Exactly.
When probably what they're shooting for is, hey, we'll allow progress to happen, but we need to maintain a certain percentage of these jobs that we currently
Or it's
have.
you already gave me a raise, so I'm asking for more, and I want zero automation. And when you come to the table and go, we will give you no more money, but we'll ensure that we'll refrain from automation for 10 years. They're like, take it.
Yeah. Or just secure. We have automation, but no job's going to be lost until the next round of thing. Okay.
Right.
That's probably what they're doing with this. Because I just don't see a world we're very capitalistic.
So what's the answer to my philosophical question, damn it?
Should we keep a dying industry? But I don't think this industry is dying. So
ports, sure, but what about trucking?
I'm
just saying philosophically, if there's an industry where the people are becoming
railroads, man, all the accidents and everything, I think people are going to give up on the railroads.
That might be a better example,
because trucking can get you more places.
It's still the job itself, but I'm saying if there is a social role that takes on a major part of your industry, but is replaceable by a drone, by an automated car, or some algorithm or technology that could literally replace it with maximum profit and also maximum efficiency. Do you hold back society and its growth for the sake of prosperity within the people? That's a question. Where are the people in the comments? Do you not have a philosophical opinion? What is this?
Should we keep the trucks? Keep them going. So I'll be the first.
I would never want a self-driving truck on the road.
I don't want.
I would worry about
You're not
that.
going to have a choice, Doug.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
when
but that's
Zuckerberg or what's the bald one that owns Amazon?
Bezos.
When Bezos owns it all, he's not going to care Doug's opinion.
Well, Bezos will be using drones. He's already working on that.
Yes.
He won't use trucks anymore.
For small parcel stuff, but you're not hauling 24 tons of stuff through a drone. It's just not possible.
All right, so distill the point.
So I don't think you hold back. you don't hold back progress, because once you hold back progress, you're putting an artificial ceiling. You're essentially subsidizing a lifestyle that isn't sustainable. And over the long term, you're not going to succeed, and you're not going to have a prosperous life. We'll almost always say, if you rip the Band-Aid off early, yeah, it's gonna be rough for a little bit. It might be rough for years, it might be rough for a decade, but eventually it'll work itself out, and there will be progress. Because that's what I think. Not everyone can just be poor and stock goes up always. It just doesn't work that way. You can't have that. It's not a sustainable atmosphere.
I agree.
So yeah, I don't think you stop it. Do you put provisions in the way to, maybe ensure that there isn't going to be just total loss on day one? Possibly. I think there's probably creative policies you can do around that, but to just stop it completely or just to go whole hog on one way, probably, I don't think either of those are necessarily healthy in the short term, but probably not in the long term either as well.
Yeah, I gotta say, Silent, what are your thoughts on this whole thing? Wrap it up for us.
I worked in a union environment at Ford Motor Company for 2 years, so I know how important unions can be for certain jobs. But in a lot of cases, I think, especially this union, I guess boss or CEO, he clearly has a lot of leverage and he knows it. And that's why, he's got that kind of mob boss sort of vibe going to him. And
see, I'm not crazy to say that either. You got that vibe.
I got that vibe too, right? But the thing is, that's how unions get stuff done, right? They always negotiate very harshly, right? And at the end of the day, eventually, most unions don't really get that good of a deals anyways, because just like you guys said, they ask for a 70% raise because they just want 30, but they publicly ask for 70 and then they just eventually go down to 30, and that's kind of their style of negotiation. At least that's how it was in the auto industry, like the union that I was part of, Unifor, which is the union here in Canada. It used to be you all here, but Unifor took over in the early 2000s. And a lot of what unions do is they negotiate, kind of like what David said, like packages, right? So for me, because I was new there and I was only there for 2 years, even though the contract that I signed said I will make 180,000, right? But what they don't tell you is you don't make that right away. You have to wait 10 or 12 years before you make that, right?
Oh, geez.
And when you sign, it's only like $20 an hour, right? It's not that great pay compared to, our minimum wage here is $16. So you're only making $4 above minimum wage. It's like a good job 20 years ago, but nowadays it's not really that good of a job anymore, because like I said, these contracts, they increased on the top end, meaning if you've been there for a long time, you're going to get taken care of. But if you're new, just signing in, I don't know how it is at the port, but at least that's how it was at Ford. If you're new, just getting into the union and paying your dues, you're getting screwed. You're basically subsidizing the guys that have been there for 20 years, right? You're getting the shit out of the stick. They're paying you only $20 an hour, whereas someone doing the exact same job that you're doing is getting paid 80 or 90 or 100 an hour, and that's where, in my opinion, the union fails to protect the new people that come in and pay the same dues, which is like $600 or $700 a month. By the way,
that's
Ford,
definitely the hierarchy of it.
So that's my whole take. Like the whole union thing is kind of good and it's kind of bad. It's good if you've been at the company for a very long time. It's bad if you're new and you're just joining. Because a lot of times, like I said, you don't really reap the rewards of those big contracts that the union sign unless you've been there like at least 10 years. And for most of these jobs, especially ports and especially, I assume it's the same for ports, but at least when I was at Ford, a lot of people quit very fast because these jobs are not easy to do. They're very mentally draining. You're doing the same thing over and over again for 12 hours straight, 6 days a week, sometimes even 7. There's mandatory overtime that because the government subsidizes these companies, you have to come in. You don't have a choice. It's mandatory overtime, right? And a lot of these unions know that if they don't give the union members this mandatory overtime, then next year the government's not going to give them a tax break. right? So there's a
Right.
lot of that. There's a lot of that also being negotiated by the unions. So to sum it all up, I think a lot of these port jobs are very important, but eventually technology is just going to have to come over and take jobs. That's just how it is. Think of like telephone line operators, in the 20s and the 30s when they had to like manually hook, telephone lines and connect people manually, right? Technology erased all those jobs, and those jobs were a huge part of the economy, right? For like a decade or two. And now they're non-existent, right? But we, we prevail, like we move on fine. Eventually technology allows us to take out these sort of jobs because, like I said, a lot of these jobs nobody wants to do them, right?
Right. That's the bigger piece here.
Well,
right?
and like
At
Elon
least-
Musk, man, he's automated a lot of his facility.
Right. And at least like when I was at Ford, like I'll give you guys a perfect example. When I first got into Ford, my first week there was 35 people in my class, right? Like in my training class, training with me. After the first week, can you guys guess how many people stayed out of those 35?
12.
5.
Ooh, Ricky's close.
Wait, how many were there total?
35 in my
10.
training class.
7.
Ricky was the closest. 3, and I'm one of them. 4. 4 people stayed.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Everybody else quit on the spot first week. They left. They're like, nope, not doing it. And there was 2 girls also in my training class. They twisted their wrist because the guns are so like torque heavy. It's like 20-30 pounds of torque.
Oh, yeah.
So if you don't know how to catch the gun, you literally will spin your wrist and you'll be hurt like really badly. But that's what I mean, right? Like a lot of these jobs, the reason why they're getting automated is because these companies know it's only a matter of time before there's just not going to be enough students or desperate people to want to come in and do these jobs because they're shitty jobs. They just are. Like there's no sugarcoating it, It's not an easy job to do. And at least Ford company, like, and I'm sure the poor people know that eventually the robots are just going to come and take these jobs over. So until then, they're probably just going to keep giving these unions what they want because they know that right now these unions have leverage. But eventually, once robots become cheap, right? Once it becomes so much cost effective that they literally can just lay people off and bring in the robots. And I hate to say it, that's and this is coming from someone who was in the industry for 2 years. That's eventually what's going to happen.
Right.
And you have 2 options, right? You can either stay at the company for as long as you can. And usually, like I said, within 10 years, most of the time, the union will protect you. Even once the robots come in, you will still have a job guaranteed. But then it's a risk that you're willing to take. Like, do I want to sink in 10 years into this place plus and just, coast until retirement? Or do I want to, pivot to something else, like a new sector or a new industry or a new career? And that's what most people, when I was at Ford, were asking themselves, right? Like, do I want to just stay doing the same thing, breaking my back, doing the same thing over and over again and wait for that $80, $100 an hour in 10 years? Or do I just want to completely pivot? And the answer is, for most people, is they just completely pivot.
No, I love that point. Ricky, rapping thoughts, my friend.
Y'all articulate everything greatly. I can't add nothing. I can't judge nothing else on this topic, honestly.
All right.
Ricky.
Rapping thoughts. Bringing down, I wanted to rip down the line and feed off of everybody. So feeding off Ricky. Ricky gave me nothing. Silent Destroyer. I like his point about unions. It brings the question. So sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. That's kind of how like we circle the drain when it comes to unions. But I also, the crux of the whole point when it comes to unions is exactly how Silent wraps his point. They have power insofar as they have leverage. And the second they have no value, they have no leverage, they then, again, here's the thing. You can exploit your leverage, but just know the second somebody's able to break away from that leverage, they're going to totally kick you to the curb. If it's one of those, like, you could play on pity or empathy when you concede your leverage and kind of have again, it's a weird world because you can't blame somebody for doing it because they're often in as it's been referenced throughout the dialogue, often in industries that nobody really wants to involve themselves because they're difficult, they're physically straining, and sometimes don't have a long life expectancy, right? Like what about coal miners? Or, this dialogue isn't solely to the dock worker, but that's the hot topic of the day. That's the news title. I like Doug just it starts and stops with the mob boss is mean. The mob boss is mean.
He's playing his card a little too hard, in my opinion.
I guess, but to me, I just thought it was to me, that's not how I read it this morning. When it came out, breaking news, I'm watching, the mob bosses, the union leaders press conference, and truthfully, to me, it just read as a stern, this is the influence, and it's not just going to be America. You're going to be hurt worldwide because we're all one, and we're all in this together. And it's like, I think the starving guy in Cambodia is not getting the same benefit as your union, and I'd like to see how much alliance they share. David, I think you've raised some very cool points, and I can appreciate where you've taken it. I think we've avoided, though, the bigger topic of the news headline, which is, we could walk down the roads of like social morality, like should we as a society, and we could have all the philosophical conversations and fun we want. But the truth lies in this is happening, right?
Yeah.
Like this strike is happening. And something that wasn't addressed at all in our conversation is the impact the union boss says that's going to have on our country. Like we are going to be starved. And in the first week, there will be, as Doug was triggered by, job losses and impacts. However, by the second week, by the third week, not only are we going to be hit, like, yeah, he acknowledges this is how it's going to be hurting us. But on the greater scale, and why this is such a huge negotiating piece with the powers that be, is because we'll make your world halt.
Yeah.
And like, that comes back to you and I. Like,
send in the union busters.
Like, we can have a philosophical conversation with how much we love or don't like unions. And the truth is, that's moot because we aren't in the conversation. So we can have an opinion and it really doesn't matter because we're not on either end of the negotiation. But how it does matter to us, how it does impact our life, is there's going to be this like starve out.
Yeah.
And you got to ask yourself, like, how's that going to impact us? What are we going to do? And again, this circles the same drain. Go look at some of our old segments, Rethink Solutions. Like, this circles the same drains of when the grid goes down, or if there's a zombie apocalypse, or all these survival scenarios. Like, this is a strand of the same head. And this can lead in a very dangerous place quick if they're able to hold out and starve the negotiation and scenario long enough. So that's the thing to be more concerned with, because it feels and it's being reported as if this is really happening. And within the next week or two, we could be seeing its impact. So I think that's the bigger takeaway. Wrapping thoughts, David.
Yeah, I think as one piece of the dialogue, we didn't bring too much into it. I think a lot of it's going to be a bit more kind of multinational, corporate based. I think the auto industry is probably going to be really affected by this.
Yeah.
A lot of that supply chain is structured by just in time, and there's a lot of raw materials that come in and out of those ports that are like, I need this to arrive, and with as very little time as possible to get on a truck and get over to me so I can make whatever I got to make, send it to my customer. We're going to see some, I mean, if they strike, we're going to see some of that. There's going to be some plant closures that just doesn't have it. And there's going to be some downstream effect. But what we saw with the railroad, if we remember the railroad strike, the government just didn't let it happen. Said, no, sorry, we're going to enforce the National Security Act and you're not going to be able to do anything about it. So tough. If the government,
How'd they get them to work?
I just said you can't strike. Basically,
What does that even mean?
If they don't show up for work, the federal government can find and arrest you.
Yep.
National
What?
Security Act.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why someone mentioned in their
Come on,
talk.
that's not screwed up.
No, someone
very-
mentioned in the talk.
very
Well,
much
what happens during wartime? Well, during wartime, they just won't let you strike.
Yep.
They'll beat the shit out of you, put you in jail if you don't show up for work.
They'll essentially just get the military to do it. That's what they'll do.
Wait,
They'll
what?
draft.
Dude,
They'll draft
what?
you.
How
That's
is
what
this
it is.
not
No,
the
no,
bigger topic?
Alex, what
This
they'll do
is crazy.
No, they'll draft you. That's what they'll do is they'll conscript you for military service to make you work.
Oh shoot.
That's what I think they'll do.
Bro,
Yeah.
there is no way. There is no way.
Well, it hasn't been used since the Korean War.
Yeah, they haven't. They're gonna do, but this current administration has shown the propensity to do just that, or at least threaten it. And we saw it with the railroad. Now, eventually, I think the one thing that wasn't quite as well reported, I don't think the administration didn't do it very good as well, is they eventually got everything they wanted for the most part. I think a lot of it was like sick leave and being able to like take days off without giving a 60-day notice.
All right, here's what I'd like to.
We got
let's get the whole crew in, because one of the things that I'd like to first emphasize, Doug, if you could focus here for a second. One of the things I'd like to first emphasize is this is a road I've already walked down. When I was a senior in college, I did a research project where I went to the Middle East. I went to Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and Oman. And the research project was meeting with CEOs of oil conglomerates and banking industries. And you're seeing huge markets that are completely built on the oil industry. And you get to look at a guy that could like literally buy your entire state. And you're just like, and you're like 21 and just got lit in a hotel the night before. And you're like, so what are you going to do when the whole world economy moves from oil and you're here mining oil? And like the funny thing was the main thing they can ever lean on is tourism. And it's just like, that is not a 1-for-1 transition. Like if you're Indiana Jones, you are setting off the boulder. That doesn't equate. So you're looking at huge markets and industries, billion-dollar industries, and you're seeing there is no foresight. Billion-dollar men have no foresight of like in the next decade or two when that is null and void.
Well, that's because they got OPEC.
Truthfully, I don't think it will be. What, Doug?
I said that's because they got OPEC, their own little cartel to protect their interests there.
That's true. That's true. And that's an added piece to it too. Like, again, I don't think it really will. I think that's the American echo chamber that like, hey, we're going green. It's like, did you see all the windmills are just like ground hood ornaments anymore? Like they are just
Getting
a waste of space.
down.
So, but before we get too off subject, I really would like to parse apart this question posed by the Thinker One, which I think the person has found their space here at the Rethink Tank. But the question reads, what is the meaning of life and how should humanity navigate the ethical dilemma posed by advancements in technology, inequality, and environmental degradation to create a sustainable future for all? So, great question. Very thorough.
This might be the best question we've ever received.
Damn.
I would agree. And it's
Most well thought out question for sure.
But, well, and I think it's the best articulated way of presenting the inquiry we were kind of skipping around. We presented it in an ugly way, and we never directly hit it head on because it wasn't articulated in such a strong way. So again, this is for the sake of all, right? But again, the thinker, I got to ask you, this comes back to all of the smartest people over the course of thousands of years that have ever recorded writing have always pondered. The greatest thinkers have always questioned, what is the meaning, like a meaningful life? For all? You'll never get for all. I'm sorry, the thinker, as much as I love you and as much as I want to believe and have faith that we could make that possible for all, there is a nature to statistics. Like 100%, you're going to have, for the sake of conversation, at least 1% that is going to be unwilling to work. You're just not gonna get them. And you're gonna have 1% that just wants to stab the mailman. And that's just where we're at. And you got to figure out how to live with them all. So I align my inquiry with the same inquiry that has been made for thousands and thousands of years, which is, what is a meaningful life? And the question is for all, with the acknowledgement that you can't accomplish it for all. So for what? The most? For the many? I lean on John Locke. You look for maximizing happiness for the most amount of people, and that's what you can do. You want to maximize opportunity. This equity shit is going to suffocate and kill a society. All you can do, what your focus needs to be always and forever, is just maximizing opportunities for happiness and growth. And if you can preserve that, that should be the goal. Okay, so that is something the think tank roundtable can agree would be what we strive for. Maximizing happiness for the most amount of people. What Ricky, before I parse it further?
Ricky was agreeing.
No, aye.
Okay, perfect.
Aye.
All right, so if we can agree that would be that sustainable future that we're trying to create, that we're trying to strive for, that's what we want to navigate towards. We're navigating. Sorry, 21 pounds. This being a significant dilemma posed by the advancement of technology, how do we achieve that? Here's an unfortunate reality, the thinker one. If I had to answer this question, I'm going to acknowledge the fact that I really do think there is a system at play to make us dumber. They're trying to make a whole culture that makes it weak to learn and read and articulate yourself. There is a whole culture around making skibbity toilet. What the fuck? So like, I'm just saying their focus is learn the next Taylor Swift song, focus yourself on the next Pokemon card. Like, dude, how long can you watch a guy open playing cards, right? Like, that to me is crazy. So we're eating plastic. A whole credit card of plastic is in your body a week. There is a whole mechanism at play to make us dumber. So if I had to say, how do you create that future? You need to raise the expectation for our society. Like, I'm sorry. Some of these things sound mean, but it's true. Like, having a strong dialect and a unified dialect is important. Having people that are reading, and not just from one resource. We spent a whole 35, 40 minutes talking about CNN and how, what if that's the only place you're getting your information? If you can at least, I'm not saying don't listen to them, because now they've chosen to tell the truth for some reason. They just said, all right, we're going to tap in on the truth for a little bit. And if you can balance that with other resources, you'll always be able to kind of find yourself in a balance in the middle that finds the truth. So I know this is long-winded, but the truth is, if you are going to replace the trucking industry, the coal industry, what was the one that you liked? The train industry. If you're going to be replacing any of these, and we need to create a future that maximizes the happiness and opportunity for the most amount of people, the truth is you need to hold those people accountable. Like, looking at the guy, you can't look at a 50-year-old and go, dude, trucking's gone. You got to figure out a computer. So in the interim, we got to figure something, and I'll circle back to that. That guy, I'm not leaving stranded. But my first focus is going to be for the future. How do we create that for the future? That's the thinker's point. And I'm going to say you need to be starting to look at your youth, and you need to start looking at your academic force and saying, I'm holding you accountable. Like, if you choose to get a gender study degree and nobody wants to pay you for it, I am not carrying you to the finish line. Looks like you don't have dinner on your plate. So you need to figure out, and here's, again, this is so deep, but like, there's a whole university scheme. They're preying on 18-year-olds. I think it's totally unfair that you're looking at an 18-year-old and saying for $200,000 whole and interest that you'll never pay off right now at 18, 17 years old, you got to pick the rest of your life. And then this is the only debt you'll never escape. So that's screwed up. But guess what? That's how we're playing it. So you need to encourage the trades more. We had a whole dialogue about how now the trades, you can make $150,000 and with your union fight for more. So I'm going to look at you and say, maybe those are avenues you need to look at more. Maybe you need to explore the trades because there's a high ticket on there because we're overlooking them. Or be someone like me where I went in for a philosophy degree and my friend's mother was a guidance counselor and everyone around me is laughing at what a joke that degree is. But they tend to score the highest on the LSAT for getting into law school. So yeah, you laugh at what I had, which was the trajectory and the long scope for where I wanted to be. And so again, when you want to go back and pay for everybody's college debt, you can't ignore the folks that are paying into this system, that are carrying the truckers that we're going to talk about and everything else. You can't replace the debt for the gender study person that has no money and not the person that paid off their debt. How are you still taking that person's money? That's insane to me. So yes, we're preying on children. It's a whole messed up scheme. And so again, the thinker, if you're seeing my point here, there's so many things that need to be addressed. This isn't a blanket fix, but it starts with attacking the youth to create this new future of accountability where they're in trades and professional avenues that are catered to the future. You know, there's going to be people writing those algorithms for the AI, or they're going to be creating new tools that will plug into ChatGPT and use the AI. Create these creative minds. We had them in the 60s and the 40s and the 20s until you snuffed it out so they could be drones and rats and zombies in your big rat race. So I'm going to leave my thought with this. You started with the youth, and you will have to create some sort of system that finds value and use for those that are still in that trade. So whether that's making a generic, easy mechanism that watches the drones, right? Like there's got to be an air traffic control person. Like, can this person be the one that is the mechanic on the drone? All right, when they come in, you got to replace the propellers. We need to find a role for them that can be phased out. And then soon robots will be replacing the propellers. But there will be a world where the bleed over can be had. And if you address the youth early enough with enough focus, you won't need to carry it through or worry about them. Now, the thinker did follow up with Case. And how can we...
There's one more before that, too. He posted two.
Oh, okay. What radical transformation of global labor relations and governmental accountability are essential to address the intersecting crises highlighted by the dock workers strike and Julian Assange's case? And how can we dismantle the entrenched power structures that perpetuate exploitation and undermine transparency in order to foster a truly just and democratic society? I'm going to flip this one.
This sounds like an AI road. Do we want to transition?
I hope it is.
Do we want to transition this to our fourth topic, and then maybe
that's true because our
roll back around?
Let's do it. So the last topic of the day is Julian Assange. He's here. He spoke out and he's got thoughts. So first, let's get to his address. And guys, we are not saying it. He says it, but we're not. Stick with the agency. Stick with the agency.
CIA Director Pompeo launched a campaign of retribution. It is now a matter of public record that under Pompeo's explicit direction, the CIA drew up plans to kidnap and to assassinate me within the Ecuadorian embassy in London, and authorized going after my European colleagues, subjecting us to theft, hacking attacks, and the planting of false information. My wife and my infant son were also targeted. A CIA asset was permanently assigned to track my wife, and instructions were given to obtain DNA from my 6-month-old son's nappy. This is the testimony of more than 30 current and former US intelligence officials speaking to the US press, which has been additionally corroborated by records seized in a prosecution brought against some of the CIA agents involved. The CIA's targeting of myself, my family, and my associates through
I'm gonna
aggressive
go ahead and count these,
extrajudicial
just so you know later.
extraterritorial means provides a rare insight into how powerful intelligence organizations engage in transnational repression. Such repressions are not unique. What is unique is that we know so much about this one due to numerous whistleblowers and to judicial investigations in Spain.
Okay, and he wraps up the point very strongly here.
The fundamental issue is simple. Journalists should not be prosecuted for doing their jobs. Journalism is not a crime. It is a pillar of a free and informed society.
Yeah.
Why is that a radical thought? Like, how crazy is that a guy has to be out here fighting for that? And in fact, his baby was being hunted for that. His family was being hunted for that. He had to go hide in an embassy, and they were the agency was trying to get him within the embassy. He was hiding in another country before he was imprisoned and then extradited and then tortured and imprisoned, and all for what? Knowledge is power, and he gave the power to who?
The people.
The people. And that, okay, and if you let them hang him in the town square, you must hang them in the town square. You're missing one phase of this, says Random Gain Dude. The in-between state of humanity and robotics.
We might be in
the state of the cyborg. Those that will be able to purchase, cybernetic. What is that? Cybernetic.
Cybernetic.
Oh, is there a cybernetic augmentation to enhance their QOL? What's that?
Quality of life.
Oh, there we go. And in some cases, extend their lives beyond the average human lifespan of time. So, one, how crazy is it that elites would rather live forever as a memory in a computer, right? Like they're like, I'll just download my whole consciousness. Yeah, consciousness on a computer.
Cyborg is like,
I know this is different. This is different.
We're saying something else.
Stop. But he's saying, people extend their life, becoming part cyborg. I'm saying take that to the most extreme, and there's people currently trying to develop ways to download their consciousness into a computer. Yeah, how insane is that? Would you really want that? Like, to me, that just seems okay. But before we get lost in the cyborg piece, because we got to keep this thing tethered. Julian Assange, okay, they're literally coming for your life. They've tortured you. They've strung you through a long period of pain. And it's because knowledge is power, and you pass that power to the people. That should really mobilize and awaken the people. What are your guys' thoughts on the Julian Assange thing first, as we kind of develop the thing? Ricky.
It's great that journalists should be protected because they bring the information, they do the investigations, fact check, and everything. I don't believe I don't believe television journalists like the CNNs and the Fox, but like when I go to an article and read the article, I expect nothing but truth from the article. Like, especially if it's from someone readable, or like y'all send me something, I trust it because you guys put it in a group chat or something. You know what I mean? So I believe like we need journalists for the truth. We need them to investigate. We need them to have whistleblowers come to them so they can tell what's going on in society and what the corporation or government is hiding from us. So I don't feel like they should be hunted and be put on a hit list, bro, by the agency or no one else.
Fair, Silent. What are your thoughts?
The difference between a dictatorship and a free country is how they treat their journalists. It's literally that simple.
Yeah, wow.
Like you said,
holy cow, is that a powerful point?
Knowledge is power, right? Like, I've been to many countries where if you type certain things on the internet, you will die. You will literally die. You will get shot, So that's the difference between like a free country and a dictatorship. And if we are doing this to Assange in a free country, then
Yeah.
how much longer until we also type certain things on Facebook and we get in trouble or die for it?
Well, how about that? I love you bring that up because we're seeing it happen in real time and people choose to ignore it. Do you guys remember the guy that shared a meme of like a fake Hillary Clinton rally, and it was clearly satire. Like, it was a phony location and all this stuff. And he was prosecuted by the Clinton Foundation, some representatives of the Clinton family, because they said it was election interference because it could have, they have no evidence that it did, but could have persuaded voters to go to a phony or faux location.
Oh, yeah. I think there's a thin line between. There is probably a little bit of intent to kind of misguide people, even in a satire way. I think there's a thin line, especially when it comes into elections. So I think we can both sit here and agree and go, we want elections to be as secure and short up as possible. And there's probably some uncomfortable conversations we need to have about election interference and how that's a bit more of a gradient line than I think we want to paint. And some of that can probably come down to, so if it's in their right to be able to assume, go, hey, what the hell? You're putting this AI video out here that says X, Y, and Z, and it's misguiding. If we just get one or two people to go, well, I went here because I thought this is what it was going to be because I watched this video. Because you got to remember, the masses can be uneducated on certain topics.
No, that's not the term.
The
masses is the asses.
The masses is the asses, and the asses can sometimes just not pay attention and look at a video and go, oh, well, what the hell? What do you mean the election box isn't at my local bar? Come on.
Now that's a way to get people involved. Put the drop-off box at the bar.
Fair.
You got to debate your points before you actually vote them in there. That'd be a good time. However, bringing it back to, I think there is something to be said about really making sure that the government, or at least the campaign's able to acknowledge that someone is doing election interference and putting out misinformation. So I think of all the rights that we do have, being able to vote and being able to have that singular voice equal amongst everyone is pretty important. And the less we can have interfere with that, the better. But having said that, I fully acknowledge that there is absolutely a slippery slope that can come with that, where, oh, well, just everything's election interference if it isn't strictly from the campaign itself.
Do you want to see it? Do you want to see the meme that I was talking about?
Yeah, show the meme. All
right. So he showed Ricky Vaughn. Thanks for spreading the word. #MAGA. I'm with her. #vote Hillary from home. Save time and avoid the line. Because again, we don't want to have a real conversation about how they're trying to hijack a third election in a row with mail-in ballots. I mean, the amount of people that just boldly speak about how they'll grab it's in my own family. Grab ballots, and because I'm with her.
Yeah.
I'm with her. So vote from home, text Hillary to this phone number, and we'll make history together. This November 8th. Oof, that's pretty.
Yeah, that's fairly damning. So using the actual campaign logo. I mean, you could.
Well, putting the date definitely kind of changes it a little bit.
Yeah,
it changes a little bit. They put a text number.
Yeah, it's hard.
That's huge.
It's really hard to say that's satire.
Yeah.
There's a toning. It's hard to ascertain tone and context from just straight up text. And this could easily be, you could crop that picture.
Unless
it
like replies to you saying, "Hey, dummy, don't forget to actually go and vote. This isn't how you vote." Like,
well, but also, can we agree that it's also picking at the fact that it's like, how easy are we going to make the vote?
Yeah.
Like, just text from home. That's how it's like, it's picking at, like, this is how gullible these people are. This is how far they'll take it. They would vote from home.
Yeah.
In the future,
vote by text.
So that right there, yeah, I call that election interference.
In the future, every household gonna have like their own little pad, and we're all gonna vote at the same time. We're all gonna be obedient, and they're gonna say, "Vote now." And we're all going to vote live, and we're going to see the result of the president live, and we're going to believe it.
Wait.
What do we got here?
The rethink. What are your thoughts on what's happening in Uzbekistan? It seems tragic, and what's happening right now with Southeast Asia students. And then it was followed up by Yo-Yo. Yeah, what's happening in Uzbekistan? We need to discuss that topic. Many students are treated bad in Uzbekistan. I don't know. Can you guys give us an inside lane on that?
Yeah,
I'm curious.
give us a.
I really don't know much about it. And then we've also just got Skibbity.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Skibbity.
I'm not sure what's going on in Uzbekistan. I haven't heard
Skibbity,
anything.
ba, 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 ba. Okay. With the Julian Assange thing, here's the scary part. That dude will never be able to feel safe.
Nope.
Like he is going to be afraid for his life for the rest of his life.
Yep.
His head is on a swivel the whole time. That's true.
It's just no way to live.
Yeah.
Right.
No way to live. Yeah.
That's crazy to me. I guess we could kind of close that out and get to our biggest topic of the night. Silent, do you have any wrapping thoughts when it comes to, I guess, wait, hold on. Let's bring it back to if we still got him. I hope you're still there, the thinker. We didn't forget about you. But, you know, he brought the full question, double comment. That's how deep it was. And it really boils down to how do we address the radical transformation that is essential to dismantle the entrenched power struggle we got going on here, or the, structure within our system. I think I've kind of flushed out my position on it. I think the real answer is education. And I really dislike that most of the deep conversations we have in this room lead to stronger education. But truthfully, like, that's perspective. Like, you are only going to get closer to the truth the more you put yourself in uncomfortable academic facilities, right? The Socratic method, where it used to be asking and learning through dialogue, and there's none of that anymore. There is just a doctrine. You eat, breathe it, sleep it, or you fail. And like, now the kids that are coming out of our academic system, they get this self-righteousness of like, I got the gold star, I got the A. And it's not because I'm the best at thinking. It's because I'm the best at spewing the doctrine. And that is radical. It is radical to say that we need to completely shatter that. And we need to bring it back to, I am now increasingly more excited and appreciative of the parents that are taking on the extreme task of homeschooling. Like, if the main focus in the classroom is going to be about your kid's gender and not math, like, it was you know what made me have an inside track to all of you, and I'm just saying it flat out, is when I was young, we would be learning math and it'd be like 6 plus 11. And then my dad would be like, what would you do if I'd put an X right there? And I'm like, why would you do that? There is literally no letters in this thing. Like, why are you making this so much worse? And I was learning algebra before it was even on the radar. And it was for no other purpose than it just had me thinking at an earlier age. And I want to emphasize something. I never loved math. I just was good at it. And you see how much value something like that is. Like, why do I need to learn geometry? I'm never going to use geometry again. Like, it literally has no value. One, you're learning how to learn, and that's huge. But two, you don't see the real world application until you're in management of an office full of people in a building that's full of asbestos and breaking down. And there is a tragedy and a fire every day. And you need to think outside the box. Okay, we've got this social issue with these two employees. We've got the courtroom isn't working because the tech isn't bringing the audio through. And we've got a pipe bursting in the basement. And you got to figure out how to get us to the finish line without a lawsuit and keeping your job tomorrow and still proving your value. And you'd be amazed how much it really does evolve your ability to, or it had an impact on me personally. I'll just speak for myself, how much it affected my ability to think in any logical sense, like just making logical equations in my head. That's what is going to be, I think, the radical change necessary to dismantle the entrenched power dynamic by, this technology issue and the encroachment with censorship and the power struggle with the state. I don't know. Silent, what are your thoughts? Do you have an answer to this great comment and question?
Yeah, I'm gonna build off of exactly what you're saying. It's education, plain and simple, because again, knowledge is power, and the more you know, the more leverage you have. The more leverage you have, the more things you can get done, right? Just like with the union guys. They're going to get that contract probably eventually because they have a lot of leverage. And the way you gain that leverage is with the knowledge, right? And so...
Dude, you see behind the veil so much easier. The
right.
moment you are equipped with the tools to pull it back.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And it's all these little things, right? Like I said, these little indicators that make a difference of, is this a free country or is this not a free country?
Yeah,
right?
I appreciate the Canadian making us put our money where our mouth is. Like, hey, there's some truth there. Like, what are you?
Right.
Yeah,
and if we're gonna be like the champions of freedom across the world, we need to have freedom in our own backyard as well here too. If we want to spread the democracy, the true freedom, the values of freedom, and what a free country actually is, we need to be able to back that up, not send our $3 agencies after someone who's literally just revealing information, by the way. That's his only crime.
Which is crazy.
Right? And that's going to be the difference. Like, we need to lead by example. We can't be shitting on Iraq and Syria and then we're doing just as bad as them, if not worse. It's like, come on, guys, you got to pick and choose. If you want to shit on them, then we need to lead by example and show them how to do it properly.
No, you're so right. Ricky, what are your rapping thoughts?
The more you know. The more you know, the better off it is for you, your family, society, and you won't be a sheep and herd. Like, you'd be able to think for yourself. It's better off if you know what to think for yourself instead of being aligned with everyone else.
No, you're 100% right. And I think, unfortunately, the audience or maybe even the thinker themselves might be dissatisfied with the answer because it's so, one-off. It's so general. It's like, well, I want some meat on the bone. And I think also with such a strong presentation of the question, it really is calling for like, shouldn't we all grab arms? Like, isn't this our call? Like, we need to push back. They're encroaching on with their power and it's becoming, suffocating. But I don't think that really is the answer. I don't think that's going to give us the result we need. And all it would do is it could end up in the same place. It could. I really don't think it would. But what it would definitely do is if it even did end up in the same prosperous place we're striving for, I think it's definitely going to result in tenfold more casualties. So the question is, at what cost are you trying to do this to? If you could accomplish us avoiding a George Orwellian future by equipping the society with the tools to avoid it before it happens. I mean, again, here's the truth. It comes back to the frog metaphor. If you got a frog in a boiling pot of water, if you throw them in a boiling pot of water, they're going to jump out immediately. But if you put them in a cool pot of water and it slowly turns to boiling, cold-blooded animal, it's going to be boiling and dead before it realizes it's in boiling water. That's what we're experiencing, right? It's this slow burn. Well, and we're in it. We're no longer in the cold water. It's slowly heating up. And hopefully you guys recognize that we're leading towards boiling, that they're going to have Big Brother. But if we can equip us with the tools quick enough and effectively enough, we can have people recognize that the water's turning boiling before it does and jump out. That's kind of where I'm at. That's why I'm so confident in education, because fighting isn't going to be the answer. You're not going to get enough people to do it, and I just don't. It'll result. We are going to war with the state. Like, they will go nuclear before they lose. And so even if all of the people that make up their mechanism of protection and defense, they still have the toys. Like, even if all of those people are us and they really won't be able to exploit it because they'll turn and be on our side, they still have the toys. And so even if it's the last man, you've got old man Biden there in the White House. Like, I'm pushing the button. Like, it's going to happen. So I think this is the safest way to effectively do it in a manner that doesn't result in us all being evaporated. What are your rapid thoughts?
Well, to answer that question, I'll agree with some of you guys here on, education's important. I believe censorship's really important. I go back to like Fahrenheit 491 or whatever.
451.
451. Where
understanding takes place in Cleveland during the movie.
Really? Yeah, it is.
We're understanding like the knowledge is power argument, but not suppressing that knowledge and not throwing it away. I don't think we're in a scenario right now where we're necessarily suppressing knowledge that's available. You can go out, you can go find it. What we're doing now is we're listening. We're choosing to listen to sources, and
wait until we get to this hurricane topic.
We're choosing to listen to scenarios that are like 100, like we believe to be 100% true. But in the spirit of the question here, what are we doing to get rid of entrenched power dynamics? You got to democratize the influence and power amongst the people, and that's not necessarily.
So you mean skipping a primary wouldn't probably do that effectively?
Probably not. No, that's not where I would go with that. Because you're going to have people who are leaders. You're going to have people that are just naturally just not leaders. I don't even want to call them followers. I'm not going to lead. I'm just going to do my own thing. I'm going to do whatever. You got to give those people the freedom to be able to go do it. But there is a sense, when we found the country, a lot of it was democracy rule with minority rights enshrined. So you got to be able to protect those you got to be able to protect the minority of voters and enshrine their rights. Hey, do we want to make Tennessee's flag blue or yellow? Well, okay, that's up for a vote, but we're going to have a flag and you're going to be a Tennessean no matter what. That's what we need to enshrine. And part of that is with the checks and balances within the current government structure that we have. We need to be a lot better in enforcing those. And we can't just have absolute power corrupts absolutely, and the more we allow that to happen, the more we're going to get into questions and scenarios where we feel like this. We need to be able to hold those in a power accountable, because that is part of our checks and balances. Because there's just no way we're going to keep this cycle going until we break that cycle.
Before we dive into the Hurricane Helene topic,
we got one more.
We've got another. Is it, Doug? I can't read. Is it Voiler?
Voiler.
Voiler. Voyeur? Yeah.
Voiler, like boiler. Yeah.
Voyeur?
Voyeuristic guy.
All right. How do you think China's push to buy more gold will affect the way countries are starting to move away from the U.S. dollar? What kind of impact do you think this will have on international trade? Okay, here's the thing. One, I'm not going to... The Joe Rogan answer is the aliens have us convinced to mine gold for them, and there's no real reason why we mine gold. It's just shiny, and we do it for the aliens. I think it's a unique commodity, and we needed to physically attribute social value to something. Social value, the value made by society, needed to be physically manifested by something. Prior to dollars and paper, it was gold. And gold has an added value. It doesn't really bring scientific value. There's not really any use for it beyond it's rare and it's unique. And you can't replicate it. And it's, very difficult to find, and it's one of a kind. So I like this question because it's on balance with a whole nother conversation, which is why is China, America, and all these other powers making such a huge push in the other direction for crypto? And why is China making a move like that while also in tandem making this gold move? I think the gold move is because the gold standard is never going to go like the relationship with gold. Sorry, that's a inappropriate phrase to use in this circumstance. Our relationship with gold is never going to change. We're always we are drawn to it like birds. So again, to the Joe Rogan thing, there's something natural to us just pawning over it. But at the same time, it's extremely rare and you can't manufacture replication. So those that have it, and those that don't. And so because of that, it's always going to have this trade value. So while you can invest economies and, potential futures in crypto and other industries, the gold industry, while it may ebb and flow, it will remain. And I think that's why you're going to see a push there innately, probably for the dawn of time, whether it's China, India, America, Mexico. Like, people are going to stay within that trade because I think that trade is never going to lose its innate value. How valuable it is will always change, but it will always find some value. Like, here's I'm trying to think of an example of something that was like super rare then incredibly plentiful. Like, there's plenty of examples of stuff like where it's like these things used to be a high commodity, but now we've found a way to replicate. Like, even diamonds. They're saying with millennials, diamonds aren't a big deal because we can pressure create them in a manufactured sense.
Synthetic diamonds can be made very easily.
We can talk about the controlled monopoly as well that De Beers has had for like a century.
And again, if it's to the naked eye, you can't tell the difference.
Yeah.
Right? Or but you can make faux gold that to the naked eye makes no difference. But then everybody knows it turns your skin green. It's all this like, there is something to gold. And find tribes for 2,000 years. There has been a natural longing for this material over any other. And it's weird or bizarre because it really doesn't have any social implication beyond the beautification or aesthetic. So I don't know. Would you hit this question?
Oh, so I think this move by China is more so to legitimize their currency, not so much to go on their own gold standard. Because you can't
some issues.
You can't put the fiat currency genie back in the bottle. Once your currency in your country is essentially just fiat currency, that's it.
What do you mean by that?
So when we went off the gold standard, we can't just go back on the gold standard and assume life will just be the exact same. So the reason why the reason why we had inflation is, part of it because of all the money we're printing. But the reason we have the lifestyle we do in this country right now is because we are the world standard of money, and therefore
the U.S. dollar.
When we print money, we essentially export our inflation off to the rest of the world. You can't do that under the gold standard because you're finite. There's only so much money you have, so you can't just print your way out of problems. You can't just,
as we continue to try to do that.
Exactly, we can't. That's why we got off in the first place.
I do wonder what's in Fort Knox now too.
Nothing,
because that used to be for gold.
Yeah, it used to be. Now it's nothing. It's not nothing. There's things there, but it's not. I don't know. It's not the gold haven it once was. So this is their attempt to probably legitimize their currency. Say, hey, we're backed by this much. We can still kind of print and move out however we want, but we have this much gold stockpiled. So trust us. If all else fails, we're going to have this gold. I think that's simply, this is what it is. There's no, because you can't go back to the gold standard and then start printing money, start giving, what China does with some of these African countries is they're investing in their ports and their roads, giving them loans. You don't do that with gold standard currency. You can only do that with fiat currency while maintaining the lifestyle you currently have in your original country.
I can appreciate that's a thorough answer. So, David, can you parse apart one more question with me?
All right.
The thinker's got one more. Do you think the BRICS will have an effect on the USD? Oh yeah, 100%.
Oh, I absolutely not.
What?
No. These are what are the BRICS made of? China, Russia, India, and what?
Brazil, South America,
Brazil.
South
Brazil.
Africa,
These aren't stable countries.
Ethiopia, and
These aren't
United
countries
Emirates.
that have long.
But they have a lot of economic influence right now.
China and
Do they?
Russia.
One does. China does. That's it.
And
they're
Russia.
Not, what's China's economic influence other than just being kind of the world's cheap manufacturer, which are now
Their bridge and road initiative has put them pretty much in charge of a lot of African countries. They pretty much own.
Yeah, dude, they
Africa.
own Africa.
Well, they don't own Africa. They have
essentially
economic influence over. They don't own them.
But they're so in debt to China that the only way they're going to be able to like get on top of what they borrowed.
All right,
is
so
to sell.
let's
let
play a thought
China
experiment
invade
here.
Africa, then, Doug. Let
So
China invade
this
Africa.
African country decides, sorry, I can't really pay you back, and China takes over their ports, and Africa's like, well, not really. We're gonna take this over with military force. We're gonna have yet another war and another conflict that the world's just gonna kind of stand by and watch. We're gonna hit a critical mass of these military conflicts throughout the world until we just have another World War III, and then we just reset.
Yeah, what are
the
you talking about?
stage.
We're already there. Dude.
We're not there. No, we're not. There is absolutely zero appetite within the American public to go put boots on the ground.
Well, yeah, we agree
on that.
But we would if they were to encroach on Africa.
And we are the single most powerful military entity in the history of the world. There's nothing else like it. And I don't think anybody really wants us to actually go whole hog into it. We did it with Desert Storm, and that ended in a couple months. That wasn't a very long war.
Yeah, but that got us a little cocky considering we were facing an army that's not as strong as like Russia or China or other places.
I appreciate the thinker knowing how to comment well, too. So, David, he said here, we are there. Did you see what happened right now? And then he followed up with, I'm not going to say it because he knows how to
with
say
a
it.
Country we are legally obligated to defend.
Yes.
Right. The attack from
the United States is not in war. I think there's a very big difference between us giving military aid and having military boots on the ground.
But you don't think we're on the precipice of something wild?
Oh, I think we're getting there. As I said, we're getting to a critical mass. There's only going to be so many of these the world can tolerate until all of a sudden it just goes all out war.
We're going to drop the first nuke.
Well, what's the point of what's the point of the UN again? I guess I'm a little confused on what their purpose
to
is.
stir up the bullshit. That's what they're here for, to just like antagonize. They're like, what, you don't want to fight? Come on, fight.
Because there also isn't any economic.
Oh, I'm sorry, they're here for peace.
There isn't any economic value for two major world economic powers at this point to go against each other. Because let's just say the United States and China, that's it. That's the only two countries that are fighting each other. No other collateral damage as far as military wise happens. The world economy sinks. Nothing, even your gold isn't worth a whole lot.
Yeah, I agree with David. Think of like how many countries will be hurt just by the loss of American tourists alone.
But how much do we buy from China too? Like, China starts a war with us, they're losing a lot of their business.
I mean, Doug,
too.
that's a point, but not really, because our business there is cheap. Like China's big business, the business, like America has business in China, and China is there taxing it and adding it to their communist pot. Yes, but that is not the major financial economy propelling China. They've got business with other world economies that are the major influences on their country.
Yeah, they're diversifying their portfolio.
If we refrain from business within them, like what would hurt them more is the ports, right? The tariffs at the ports are what was hurting them, because that's where like they can't snake in their profit. Like, no, you got to pay to bring that in then. To me, the China thing, they're not worried about their business with us, but they do have their own world economy. I like David's point that there's too much at stake. I think a lot of people are slinging out bluffs, and what's going to call the bluff is when the going gets tough, right? Like when this finally heats over, like you said, too many of these conflicts, they're either going to need to step up or shut up. And I got to tell you, dude, we're dealing with delusional authoritarian leaders. And I think whether it's futile or not, they're going to step up the bat. And that's the scary reality.
I think in these small countries, that's the case. What we're seeing right now in the Middle East is an example exactly of that. I was like, well, I got nothing to lose. This is religious and family.
I don't know. You can see that with China too, man.
I think they're a bit more calculated than that. You're not a country for almost a millennia here without some sort of discipline to be able to just, all right, we understand our place in the world. Remember, Japan almost took over China not even too terribly long ago, and they're able to kind of pull back from that. What's good for the goose, good for the gander. Yeah, we can maybe get in some military squats some places here and there, but you don't piss off the hand that feeds you. Is we cut off, we're going to be economically hurt if we cut ourselves off from China. There's no doubt about it. But I think they're way worse off. And then again, the whole world economy just shrinks if we stop the two biggest economies trading from each other. So there just isn't an appetite for them. We also have to think about the multinational corporations. No one's brought up what the multinational corporations feel about this.
Yes, the real powers that be.
Lockheed Martin and Boeing would love to have another reason to sell some planes to the United States. However, I don't think, like Amazon really doesn't want a war between the United States and China. Apple, Samsung, Google, all these great places we love. BlackRock doesn't want a war because if BlackRock has holdings on the wrong side of the war, boy, they're not gonna have as much power and influence. So the oligarchs and those that are really, really high up in power don't really want this. They want to keep it like Taiwan and like a couple of places in the Middle East because they don't really have that much control in the Middle East. And then beyond that, there's just no appetite for it. I think that's what makes this a little bit different than World War II, World War I, where we're just not quite as globalized.
We're all interconnected now.
Yeah, we're too interconnected for just an all-out scale war.
That was the whole purpose of being like the global economy, was to hopefully prevent a future crisis by making everyone more interconnected.
Yeah,
it hasn't really worked out that way.
I disagree because there was a stat before the Ukraine-Russian thing. No two countries that had a McDonald's invaded each other. There's some weird stat like that.
That's actually hilarious.
Yeah, like if you
McDonald's is the peacemaker.
So this would be a question I would normally stray from, but I want to ask it just so I could see if we can make David sound like Tim Pool.
Oh God,
I just want to see if we can do it. If we can do it, it'd be fun. All right, David. The question's for you from the Thinker again. With the ongoing conflicts in Ukraine, the Middle East, Africa, and South America, do you think we are on the brink of World War III?
No, I don't believe we are.
So close to making it Tim Pool.
The closest I would guess the closest we would be is the Ukraine-Russian situation. It's an interesting thought experiment that if Russia uses, let's say they use some sort of nuclear weapon on Ukraine, how does the world react? I am under the impression the world doesn't want nuclear war.
I think it would all depend, though, too. Like, let's say they used it. There's a whole other things we got to talk about and think about when that happens. But one of the main things would be, what's the wind like? If they blow it off close to their border and the wind's blowing it into Russia and only Russia's getting that radioactive stuff, people may not be as upset. But if that blows into Poland or into Western Europe, that's a whole international mess.
And China is also moving on the Philippines and Taiwan.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot on every angle of the world.
I think China could kind of just take over Taiwan and there won't be World War III.
Oh, there would be, because we get all of our processor chips from Taiwan.
I don't think so. I don't.
Wait,
if they get Taiwan, they don't get Philippines.
Taiwan.
Yep.
We're legally obligated to give them all the means to defend themselves. We wouldn't just leave them hanging. It would
give them the means to defend themselves, not defend them for China, or defend China from them, or defend them from China. There's a big difference there.
But we'd probably get involved to an extent, though. There's no way we would let Taiwan, where we get a lot of our chips that we rely on to make
that's a whole.
everything.
We would get involved probably the same way we're currently involved with Ukraine situation.
But we don't get much from Ukraine, whereas we get all of our chips
No,
from
actually,
Taiwan.
there's a lot of resources in Ukraine. That's part of the problem with
It's
this
the
whole
world
fight
grain
too.
and stuff, yeah. But like, what do we get that directly affects our military from Taiwan? Computer chips.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we would
whole world,
we would
in
help
fact.
them militarily, but we're not putting boots in the ground. We're not sending fighter jets to go fight and actually shoot down things. We're not doing that. And Taiwan's probably about the breaking point. We get to that point, and then now every other country starts thinking, well, maybe I can take a little piece of this pie too, and then something's going to give. I don't necessarily know what the straw on that camel's back is going to be. It's probably going to be a UN country. If you fight, because like the UN thing, if you attack one country, you attack all of them. So they all are legally obligated to go
Ukraine's
into
part
war.
of the UN, and
Ukraine
Russia
is not part of
and
the UN. The Ukraine is very
Ukraine's in the
specifically
UN,
not
aren't they?
part of the no. That's why they wanted to be in the UN so bad.
Oh, that's right. They're
started
not in
this
the
whole
UN
war.
or NATO.
I'm part
I
of
know they
NATO
were
too.
NATO. I
There's
forgot
that-
they're not
There's
in.
that big wall.
Oh, and they're not in the EU either. They keep trying to get in the E EU.
That's probably that I don't know, but there is consequences to these actions, and everyone's starting to figure out, all right, how far can we push until someone holds us accountable? And the moment we hold someone accountable, then that's when we start getting into World War III conversations. But I think it's an all-on onslaught, like we saw World War II. Someone would have to throw a nuke, and then we get boots on the ground to a legitimate extent. I think that's the only way we actually get to that point.
All right, let's wrap the thought up with the thinker, ending up with one last comment. Are the events leading up to World War I, such as complex alliances? Sorry, the TV is really bad for this. As the events leading up to World War I, such as complex alliances, nationalism, and territorial disputes, similar to the current global conflicts we see today? Yeah, I mean, it's very similar.
It's
But
somewhat similar.
see, I think this is a question. I've asked this a lot because I think domestically there's a lot of tension, right? We're talking internationally about war, and oftentimes I also think there's a dialogue about civil war. I mean, one time it was about something physically that divided us, right? Race, or some would say ideologically, some still think it was a states issue. But here, that you're not going to be able to distinguish the teams from each other in America, right? It's going to be ideological. You're going to have red versus blue. And I only say that because when the question, or, the point by the thinker, I ask all the time, like, there had to have been Americans like 5 years. I mean, the whole thing of like abolish slavery or fight the state against state rights encroachment, like that didn't just happen overnight.
No.
Like there was conversations about it. Like, hey, do we need to step up? Like, do we need to talk about this? Do we need to fight back? Are they doing too much? And then finally tension snapped.
Yeah.
I want to, what was that like? What were those people feeling? What was the dialogue and the climate like within the country? Was it exactly what we're feeling now, or was it something totally different? Because part of me feels like right now we're kind of like, is anybody seeing this? Is this getting crazy? Is this getting tough for everybody? Are we about to snap on each other? And then it probably snaps. Or am I reading this wrong? And it was totally different. Like, I hate you, Bob. I hate you, Greg. I hate you, Bob. I hate you, Greg. And that just went on for 10 years until finally they were like, we're going to war. And then, you couldn't watch Dukes of Hazzard anymore.
Well, I think it's the interconnected nature of the way we go about life in the United States now is significantly different than kind of I live in Mississippi my whole life. I'm within these 2 or 3 counties, and these people over in Ohio and New York are trying to expose their will upon me. Where now I can move to a state where I feel my ideology is more aligned with their state values, where before then you're uprooting generations of families that initially either claim that land or are the first or second generations that are part of that land. So I think there's a bit more of a in-rooted nature and a bit more of a pioneering aspect to it as well. Where I'm not letting you, because we're only, I think they're 100 years removed from the Revolutionary War, and part of that was I want to be able to do my own thing, my own way, and control my own boundaries. And I think a lot of that spirit kept up until about the Civil War. And then that's when we had the reconditioning of now it's a federal government. We are a union. We are one, and separating from that union is right now very illegal. I don't think where this comes down, it'd have to be drawn on state lines, and it'd have to be drawn like very specifically that way versus, walking down the street. I have a very wild political deviation from that person, and we're going to vote in the same state, and the states just kind of go just kind of back and forth on that. And you also got to think as well, if we were to just go straight up Civil War, there's probably going to be just crazy. They're like the 5% on one side, the 5% on the other side are going to go to a war with each other. Like we're probably just going to see like riots in the streets where they go at each other. And then the rest of the 90% of the country is just going to be in the middle going, I don't really want any part of this. And, does the military get a little bit more involved? And then all of a sudden now you got like, you kind of shot my neighbor. I don't really like his ideology, but you really shouldn't be doing that. Does it then become more the people versus the government? Because the whole, stock trading, we don't feel we're getting our vote, electoral college, just like all that bubbles up. Even though we're not necessarily on the same line politically, it's almost like the French Revolution where we just revolt against it just turns into like a class warfare thing almost overnight, when it started off as, am I allowed to say the R word on TV? I don't know. But I don't think it's quite the same as it was when we were dealing with like slavery.
Yeah, this was crazy. That being said, I don't know how we got down this lonely road.
We still got one more topic.
Yeah, this is probably the biggest topic, so we're gonna have to trim as much of the fat off as we can and keep it tight and strong. But Hurricane Helene hits the East Coast, and it has significant more wreckage than any of us really anticipated. First, check out this crazy clip of I guess the wreckage.
And I think we want to say the wreckage is mostly flooded.
Literally a house flooding.
Yep.
Literally
mostly flooding, but here's something. Okay, first let's just
let this video speak for itself. Yeah, straight up a house floating.
That's
the buoyancy of that double wide is unmatched.
Yeah. Which again, that's crazy in and of itself. But here's what I want to acknowledge or take a look at. All right. This is what not only the coastline looks like, but like sincerely, we're talking, what was it? Asheville,
North Carolina.
Asheville's like an hour and a half inland.
Oh, it's near the mountains.
Yeah, it's closer to Tennessee than any other part, other big city.
And it got wrecked. So again, here's kind of closer to the shore, but I wanted to show a picture more than anything. I've seen a lot of clips, a lot of videos. We could bore you forever, and I think we've lost too much of the time today to do that. One of the more interesting pictures to me was this.
The amount of sand that got washed up.
So look at this
storm.
This was overnight.
Yeah.
And then we're wondering how Egypt got buried, right?
Yeah.
This is it, folks. You're looking at it. Like, how is Rome a city built on top of a city? Like, it takes one super disaster. And look at humans. They are resistant. They will survive. They will find a way, and they'll just build a civilization on top of the old one. But to me, this video or this picture, and I wasn't able to find better ones. Like, there are more out there. There are better ones I've seen.
Well, like Alex, you and I, our family has spent time in Florida. Like our area, though, our family has spent time in. They're like this. Like there are 2-3 feet of sand on like the roads in Florida, like where it entered, like the sand washed up all this stuff onto the roads collapsed. I mean, it was crazy down there too.
And I think what made this particular hurricane a bit more aggressive than just some others that go through vulnerable spots is it started off as a category 4 once it hit inland. And then by the time it got to northern Georgia, it was still a cat 2. And that's the last time I saw that was in 2017. Then before that was way
Yeah, it's
long
pretty
ago.
crazy for it to be that high once it hits land.
And then it went up the Appalachian Mountains, where typically hurricanes just don't go. Usually it just disperses, but it was, I don't know, it's high enough. I'm not an expert in this, but it went up there. So areas that never experience flooding, because everything goes downhill, now experience mass flooding. So there's, they call, I think there's some people call this the Katrina of like North Carolina, and seeing some of these,
a dam did collapse too, and like was flooding people in Tennessee. I mean, the levees burst in, during Katrina, and people got flooded. The same thing's happening in like parts of Tennessee and North Carolina. They got flooded because like dams and stuff collapsed during the storm.
Yeah, it was a once in 100-year type of flood action for that area.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Nuts.
Silent, what are your thoughts from above? Hurricanes ain't getting to you, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't think they ever come up.
Well,
here,
we just got a lot of rain in the last like 3-4 days, but that was
sorry about that.
My bad.
Our bad.
And some winds too, but that's it. Nothing too crazy up here. And I really hope that everybody's safe out there, man. And I hope that people have properly evacuated if they were told to evacuate, because that would suck if you were in a house like that and it's floating down the street. Like that would be horrible.
It's a major lazy river right there.
Yeah, like get house insurance, people. Please get house insurance.
River.
And I think the other thing that also caused some issues,
stuff,
is the roads. There wasn't a lot of places to evacuate too, because the major highways that were carved into those mountains collapsed in on itself. So you're driving, you're going, oh.
I always hated driving through the mountains too, because like that, like, you can see where they carved it out of the mountain, and you can see where rocks are falling down. They have all the signs saying loose, but then on top of that, there's no way to get off those mountain roads. Like when you're driving like down 71, like that takes you down south. You're not in the mountains. You take 77 through the mountains. You're in West Virginia, for example. You're stuck in traffic or an accident or the road collapses. You have nowhere to go. You are stuck. You have no other options.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's true too. But I want to draw upon a more, macroscopic view. Again, looking at like the state. So there's articles coming out, surprisingly, by like Yahoo and everywhere else that, there are rising concerns with the government's approach or lack thereof to aid and assisting the situation. And it's peculiar because we all were alive and experiencing life when Katrina happened, right? So Louisiana gets obliterated, and it's like everything, like almost within the scope of 9/11. Like it was huge.
It's the news for
you
months.
Couldn't stop seeing videos of it. Everybody remembers the video of the
George Bush don't care about black people.
Yeah, seriously. Kanye, like that's a cultural moment, historical moment in life. And there's the notorious video of like the lady that was stranded on her roof.
Yep.
And there were tons of people that had to go to their roofs. They were the whole place was totally swamped out. And it's crazy the coverage that got. That was everything. This is getting crickets.
Yeah.
As American cities are being obliterated.
Asheville is a great city too. Tons of great breweries. Big city.
Interesting.
I loved it.
Well,
Now it's gone.
I heard a theory that because of we're seeing a lot of these historic disasters kind of one on top of the other in the past 10 or 20 years, because we're now in the information age. I'd say with was Katrina probably the last major storm before the information age, or was it the first major storm at the information age? Which way you ever dissect it, it was the first or last of a major event. And now all of a sudden, everything after that is either compared to or seen as lesser, even if in that area, like in Asheville, well, this is worse than Katrina, because in Katrina I could still go home. It's some of this is all relative, but we're now it just has like a media thing. It's always just the new shiny thing.
Well, hold on. So yeah, I like that. But I want to take this step further. So keep the Katrina experience and take that on balance with the Hawaii experience, right?
Yeah, another
so
historic
Hawaii
one.
Gets hit by these crazy satellite laser beams. I mean, I'm sorry, there were fires. Fires is natural fires. They were just totally natural. Don't look around, dude. We have our friend James. We'll leave it at that. His sister. He's been on the show a lot. He's talked about it on the show. His sister lives there, and if I didn't have boots on the ground, like keep pulling, I wanted to stay away from that conspiracy so bad. So badly
Does his sister have a blue roof?
She was saying the only houses that are there are blue roofs. She will stand by that whole point.
Does this studio have a blue roof? Just asking for.
Oh no, we're cooked. We are cooked, and the natural fire is going to come right through the rethink tank. But I only say that because it's like, okay, keep the Katrina experience on balance with the Hawaii experience. It's like major publicity, focus on Hawaii insofar as we need your attention because we need you to give Oprah and The Rock money. And then when the whole community was like, F y'all, they were like, all right,
why are we giving these rich?
They were like, all right, forget about Hawaii altogether. Hawaii doesn't even exist to you. Like the second they got backlash, they were like, all right, that's it. So
we gave them $800. It's good. They're fine.
So notice when they want radio silence, they can flip that switch instantly. So I'm only saying that this is more of a real point than we want to make it out to be, because when they want to make it your whole life, like Katrina, they will. We've seen a world where they're about to make it your whole life, and then like people are talking and they're like, all right, forget about it. And now this is happening, and there's no financial benefit to bringing your attention to struggling Americans. Because again, I still need to justify $2 more billion to Ukraine. So you're not going to let me do that if you know North Carolina's obliterated. So we're just going to make you forget that. And it doesn't exist to you.
Do you think part of it too is we're concentrating all the major news outlets into one? It's like when we had Hurricane Katrina, there was several major news outlets. It wasn't just CNN, Fox, ABC, whatever. It was the New York Times, this Post, this paper, this, that, and the other. And now with that consolidation of news, we now have like 10 companies that go, well, I'd rather just talk about something else right now. Where before it's, there's when you hear 20 voices and 7 of them say the same thing. Okay, all right, well, that's major news. That's still going on. But now it's five voices, and if only one of them saying it, you just don't feel the same way with it.
No, I appreciate
do you think that's
that.
Part of it.
No, I do. I can appreciate that. Now, with that being said, Doug dives in right at the crescendo of my point, and we didn't get to hear his. So, Doug, what were you saying?
I was saying I remember all that, and people were also going like, what the fuck? Why are we going to give you our money? Aren't you like Oprah's like a billionaire? Rock's for sure damn close to being a billionaire with all his money. Why are we giving the money? Shouldn't The Rock be donating his own goddamn money to Hawaii, not asking us for that?
That's the upside down world we live in. Like nothing is logical here.
Doesn't he pride himself on like being a Hawaiian or something like that?
Polynesian. He prides himself on being Polynesian.
He's Samoan, yeah, he's Samoan.
Okay, but like, then why isn't he donating money to Hawaii and not us? Because that's like his kindred right there.
Well, I think in fairness, I think he did. And now what's the extent of it? Is this for? I think there's a lot of. You can say you donated.
How much did he donate versus how much did he donate based on what we gave him to donate? That's my question. Did he actually donate, or did he just give what we gave him?
Or did he start a company that helps people, but then it's actually just a giveaway for his buddies?
It's a tax scam.
I just couldn't imagine being the millionaire where I have
Like
multiple
100
houses.
millionaire.
Yeah, well, Oprah's a billionaire, but you know,
I don't think The Rock's a billionaire.
I don't think he's a billionaire, but he's in the 100 a millionaire. And you've got to do imagine not your domicile residence, your vacation home gets crushed. And all of the peasants that feed you at your restaurants, take care of your roads, take care of your grocery stores, man down the hatches, but are just your average American wage. Imagine standing on that island where your vacation home was crushed next to sincerely displaced people of the same ethnicity and background and begging for money for your cause. Like, I don't know, but my vacation home. But my vacation home. It was an expensive home. I don't think you guys recognize how big the property was. There was a lot of damage. There was a lot to be damaged. Yeah. So I'm at a bigger loss than the lady with a little shack. You don't get it. Bigger loss. You must pay me. The audacity. Or am I missing something? Should we just fork it over?
I think we should probably just fork it over. They know what to do with the money better than we do. That's why we're poor. She's rich.
It's true.
She built herself upon that. Come on, guys. There's just, what are we? Come on.
Other places got hit other than North Carolina. What?
Yeah,
why
it was all along that
North Carolina, Florida, Atlanta, Tennessee got hit real hard too. Tennessee, I feel like never really gets hit by a hurricane.
Yeah, and no one's talking about Tampa or nothing. Tampa got hit.
Well, yeah, Tampa got hit. South of Tampa got hit real hard. That's like,
I think why they focus on one specific spot. Like everywhere got hit. Yeah, like Tampa got hit hard.
Tampa got hit real hard. They're they had sand washing off their beaches. Like all those beaches down there have like seawalls from before they built the actual beaches. And they're saying so much sand was washed off of these beaches, like Tampa, south of Tampa, where it kind of worked its way up. Like where my family goes a lot. Like I Googled the area and they're showing pictures. I mean, the sand, there's like 3-4 feet of sand on the roads and all that. And like the old seawalls are exposed on all these pictures. Like I saw a helicopter flying over where the place my family usually stays when we go down there. And like the seawall is completely exposed. Like that thing had been covered for like 20 years and all the sand got washed up. And then Gerget's showing all those pictures. Like it was a crazy storm.
I think the other thing too with anything now with hurricanes in Florida is we've just seen so many of them. There's been we're getting it. We're starting.
But here's what's crazy: it's not just Florida. This is inland Carolina.
Yeah, this was all the way to Carolina.
That's why we're focusing on Carolina much more than we are Florida. It's like Florida. The average person like Florida.
Poor Florida just keeps getting kicked around, and they're like, "Yeah, but they're already a domestic violent victim. Like, just let them whatever."
They already got hit by a hurricane like last week. Aren't they prepared for this? Should they be better prepared? What makes the Carolina thing a bit more interesting is that hurricane went up the Appalachian Mountains, which places that are not ready for a hurricane got hit by a hurricane. So that's the crux of what makes this hurricane special. But it's true. You have communities that have never seen a flood in their lives all of a sudden just getting trounced by as much water as they ever seen in a lifetime.
Well, here's the unfortunate part. We see a problem. We acknowledge the problem. We can highlight the problem, but I don't know if that's ever going to change or have it go anywhere. Let's start closing this plane because it's been a long one.
Yep.
Silent, can you give us your rapid thoughts on the topic, please?
If a hurricane is coming to your area, please evacuate. Be safe out there. You know, like don't mess with Mother Nature. If there is an evacuation in your area, just leave. It's just stuff at the end of the day. There's insurance that can take care of it. There's government programs that can take care of it. So just be safe out there. You know, don't try to play with hurricanes, man, because hurricanes don't care about you. They will literally crush your house and or just, float it down a stream, as we saw.
The way you're talking about a hurricane right now,
it's like,
do not mess with them. They will come to your house and mess you up.
It's like playing with fireworks. Like just don't do it. Just don't do it.
So yeah, take it seriously. Get home insurance. It's only $20 a month usually for most places, $50, $100, whatever. It's worth it. Especially if you're in a flood / hurricane area, especially. And yeah, honestly, like it's one of those things where the earth is just gonna keep, having extreme weathers every couple of decades, and we just have to deal with it as humans, unfortunately.
No, I agree with that totally. Ricky, rapid thoughts.
Rapid thoughts, man. For the amount of money the U.S. spend out to other countries and other resources around the globe, and the amount of natural disasters that happen here, like not little stuff, I would expect the federal government to have a way better response, especially if people have to evacuate and stuff, like, and governors to like call in the National Guard, make sure people are out and stuff of that sort. I would think it would be a lot more prepared, especially with technology. You know how strong and how far the hurricane is gonna carry. God damn,
Dude, I think Silence sent it to your bedroom.
Just don't
get you.
All right, so with that all being said, we're landing the plane here and we're ending the thought, but the thinker just doesn't want to end it.
Thinker can't
stop.
it.
First, I wanted to call his bluff. The thinker was like, "I'll do a backflip if we go another hour," and I'm all for the content. To me, that sounds fun. But then it followed up with the fight a lion and
an elephant.
Now I know. Now it's all a fib. You almost had me. You almost had me. So first, David, your wrapping thoughts.
So we always blame the government for not being available for a natural disaster.
That's right.
Or not.
But then we get mad about how Trump throws a toilet paper roll. So that's how that goes.
Well, idiots are the ones that are probably getting mad at that. But again, when we see areas that are hit by weather events that aren't natural to that area, it's just hard to have the infrastructure build up. That's what, Florida, they're able to bounce back from hurricanes, even real nasty ones, because the infrastructure is just ready for it. They know they're going to be there. If you lived in an area that floods all the time, okay, you're prepared for it. The community around it, the surrounding communities around it are ready for that, particular event. Here, it just wasn't the case. So they're caught, not necessarily blindsided, but definitely the town wasn't ready for it. We've never seen one of these before. What are we supposed to do? And that whole area for the next, 30, 40, 50 square miles had the same issue. So it's difficult to assemble the troops, get them in there, help out, especially in something that's like a Cat 4 all the way to Tampa up through Atlanta, all the way up and, pretty much ended almost West Virginia, maybe a little bit of Virginia. That's tough. That's tough to, there's not enough to go around all the time all at once. We just don't have that infrastructure.
Whoa. We do. We just send it to gender study courses in Pakistan.
LA doesn't see hurricanes for a reason. It's for all the gender study courses.
And that's why they all congregate there. I'd cut you off.
The more quality flags you send in your neighborhood, the less likely you are to see hurricanes.
That's it. So put up your North Carolina flag so that way they can get the attention they deserve. My wrapping thought is going to be, I just want to remind you, take note of past history. When they want to turn it on, they can. And when they don't, they also know exactly how to not turn it on and ignore it and make it go away. And that could be potentially what's going on here, because somehow we know how to do it when it's politically advantageous. I just want to know, okay, Do you think the people that are obliterated and don't have a house, because it just went down the river, do you think they're going to want to vote for the same president that's currently ignoring them? We had a great episode that wasn't going to get us in trouble until the very last sentence.
Well, New Orleans does vote blue. Well, shit. Yeah, that was.
Yeah,
that
here we
was-
go.
yeah,
Here we
no.
go. I had a point. All right. That being said, guys, we go live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. I want to thank all the folks that joined us in the comments today. Today was a really great one. So shout out to the random game dude, Valaire, the Thinker One. You know, the whole purpose of the live show is to get you involved. You guys add another dynamic to this whole perspective, and that's the whole point. We don't want to be stuck here in our echo chamber, and you help us, achieve, I guess, the closer attribute to the there we go again. But try to avoid or get as close as we can to the truth, and you help us achieve that. So thank you to everybody that joined us today, because again, we go live every Tuesday at the same time, same place. So if subscribe, come back, join us again. We also have other live shows, so be sure to join us there. On Sundays, we have our 11 a.m. Wake up, have a cup of coffee with us, and have some laughs. It's a total removal from all of the philosophy and political science. Take a break, have a cup of coffee and some laughs with the Rethink Actions, where we just react to crazy, wild videos. And the last episodes have been pretty fun. So if you need to, jump on over and check out that channel as well. And then also following that on the same channel, we have the Sunday Football Review, where we review all of the fun things that have happened in football that week, and we get ready for this upcoming week of football. Prepare for your fantasy team and enjoy all the craziness that happened across the board there. But I'm sure you're asking yourself, where can we find all of this in one central place? And you can find it at our website at www.rethinktankpodcast.com. So be sure to dive on over there. We had Ricky, we had Silent. Be sure to check them out. Let's bring them in here. Boys, tell them where they can find you. First, Doug, get rid of the banner.
Kick.com/SunDestroyer, baby. We are live every single day. Make sure to
User.
tap in, guys.
Hey, they think I've been lying for weeks and weeks saying, hey, your boy gonna have a bourbon review. But guess what? Old Fashioned's here, dog. It's coming, it's coming. I got it today. We gonna see which Old Fashioned is better, y'all. So, man, check out Just Another Day TV. We coming.
Oh,
And we ain't coming hard. No Diddy. But we outside. Y'all blessed up.
Man.
Y'all stay
He had to
safe.
take it there. He had to take it there. Guys, I appreciate you, Silent, Ricky, for joining us as always. But everybody that joined us in the comments, thank you again. If you're looking where you can find everything from the podcast, we got episode 100 coming out tomorrow. We did flavor tripping. We took these M-Berry little tablets. You eat these tablets and it flavor trips, where things that are sour are incredibly sweet. Brian was eating handfuls of sardines. It was terribly disgusting. Speaking of Brian, here's what's really weird is I have this episode coming out with him tomorrow. It comes out at 6 a.m. tomorrow. Brand new episode. Couldn't be more excited. But in the weirdest way, I got this clip. I don't negotiate with terrorists. So like I didn't want to respond, but I feel like
Help me, somebody! I'm out here with the dolphins! I need some help! Anyone?
Yeah, Brian's still with the Dolphins. Like,
oh, we gotta go get our boys,
kidnapped
bro.
in the middle of alive, and he's just gone.
Even though I'm black, I can
we gotta
swim.
get
I'm
him.
from Jamaica, bro. We gotta go, bro. We gotta go.
That's right, dude. We can't let the Dolphins get away with this. No. But what's crazy is we have this episode coming out tomorrow talking about his future with the show, and he's kidnapped with Dolphins. But that's neither here nor there.
It's okay. I'm here.
Yeah, we got Doug.
Dougie friend.
Now that being said, it is a bundle of laughs, and I honestly think you'll enjoy kicking your week off with it. It's a long one, so chip away at it. But look out for the new podcast coming out. I have so here's where I'm at, episodes in the chamber. So every Wednesday, the new podcast coming out. Like I said, everything can be found at the website at www.rethinktankpodcast.com. Thanks to the folks, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.